Times of great change always initiate new artistic movements. The Victorian era was such a tumultuous period that it saw not one, but two. The larger of the two is the Romantic movement, and I've offhandedly mentioned it enough that anyone who watches these videos should be familiar with it. Romanticism was a direct reaction to the Industrial Revolution and prioritizes artistic expression, sentimentality, and the beauty of nature in works that follow the trend. To the Romantic artist or poet, the world they currently lived in was becoming dirty, crowded, and the role of the individual was getting lost in the shuffle. Might sound a little familiar. Romanticism was a way to bash against that cage, to exalt the beauty of the natural and simply feel. It was also a reaction to the previous Enlightenment era, so heavily prideful of rationality and science. However, every movement has its counter-movement, and the Romantic one was no exception. Romanticists, despite the machine they were raging against, were wildly optimistic, dreamy, mostly concerned with accentuating the beautiful. It largely ignored the other side of the coin, even if it be just as important a part of the human experience. And that is where the Gothic movement comes into play. Although some forms of Gothic literature predated the height of the Romantic movement, they were two ideas that developed and intertwined with each other so thoroughly that it's difficult to pull them apart. While Romanticism focuses on beauty, individuality, wonder, you could even say, Gothic sentiments aim for the opposite. They revel in the ugly, the grotesque, the twisted. Humanity's emotions and sentiments may be beautiful, but they can also be terrible. Anger, sadness, obsession, madness, these were the emotions that Gothicism focused on, and you could feel the ripples of its thinking all the way up to the modern day. One of the most famous works of Gothic fiction also happens to be the codifier to the entire genre of science fiction, that of course being Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, but it is nowhere near close to the only notable work. The Count of Monte Cristo, Wuthering Heights, The Scarlet Letter, Dracula, and anything Edgar Allan Poe has ever touched all fall within its purview. Some Gothic works feature supernatural elements and predate the genre of pulp fiction that my beloved H.P. Lovecraft tends to be recognized for, but fantasy or not, all Gothic works feature an emphasis on the emotional and the natural, just like the Romantics, but always focus on the worst elements of humanity, and how, in a way, those are just as beautiful and worthy of discussion as everything positive and aggrandizing. Gothic fiction is meant to keep us humble, in a way. In my humble opinion, they often seem to have more to say than their Romantic counterparts as well. Even if the Gothic movement reached its height in the Victorian era, stories that use its ideas and aesthetics are still coming out to this day. The well of human suffering will never quite dry up, and one of the most interesting, deep, and intense modern takes I've seen of the genre is the house in Fata Morgana. Yes, we are finally getting to the subject of this video. The house in Fata Morgana takes the historical settings, the aesthetics, the vibes of a traditional Gothic novel, but it also takes something far more important: the ideas. Character emotions and sentiments are at the center of this narrative. They are what doom the characters, but also what may potentially save them. We are about to witness a tale that spans centuries, all contained in one gloomy, ancient mansion. I hope you're ready to cry, because I've read this story like 3 times through, and you know I'm gonna fucking cry again. My name is Hedgehog, welcome back to this nonsense, and this is the house in Fata Morgana.
Waking up without a given name, broken by the weight of fear and blame. Shadows dance along the hall, I hear them call. Time's turning like a rusted key, locking up another part of me. Chains are rattling on the floor evermore. That door is shut, the light is gone, but still the nightmare carries on. The threads of fate begin to fray. I won't let it end this way. Why
I have a small confession to make. The house in Fata Morgana is the reason I started this channel, for the simple fact that this story fucked me up so bad in both an emotional but especially in a mechanical sense that I simply needed to talk about it. I haven't covered it yet for fear of it being too niche to be interesting, but if I'm honest, ever since Higurashi concluded, I've actually gotten a bunch of requests to cover it. Besides Umineko, it is currently my most requested visual novel. Which is funny, even though I put Higurashi in the title to draw people in, the work Fata Morgana most resembles is definitely Umineko, and you can tell that the creators were clearly heavily inspired by it. So consider this my apology and your conciliation prize. Shall we get into it? The house in Fata Morgana was originally released in 2012 in Japan and wouldn't see a Western release until 4 years later in 2016. This makes it relatively young in the pantheon of classic visual novels, especially here in the West. It was created by writer Keika Hanada, who will be my punching bag for the next 3 videos, artist Moyotaro, and 5 different composers, though I will principally be crediting Yusuke Tsutsumi, who seems to be largely responsible for the direction and main driving force behind the sound. They all operate under the name Novect, formerly Novect Tackle at the time of Fata Morgana's original release. They are indie to the extreme, and are the poster children for the idea that all you need to make something legendary is some raw talent and sheer gumption. Because Fata Morgana is legendary. At least in my eyes. Don't be surprised if you don't quite see it in this first video, but trust me when I say that as a writer, this story gave me an existential crisis after finishing it. I mean, the best story already exists, so what's the point in even trying? Am I right? Please take what I say with a grain of salt. Fata Morgana definitely has its problems, just like every other piece of fiction out there. However, the fact remains that it is one of the most interesting, heart-wrenching, and devilishly constructed stories out there. So alright, stop sucking its dick, where even are we? The house in Fata Morgana follows the adventures of you. Yes, you. You awaken in a dark, abandoned manor house, seemingly floating in some sort of a void. The only other person is a maid, who seems convinced you are her long-lost master, come back to the mansion. You have no recollection of who you are, and so she takes you by the hand and leads you down through the mansion's memories to see if you cannot find yourself again. That's our plot summary, and I'm sticking to it. Yep, that's the whole plot. It isn't just the first third of it, don't worry about it. So now that I've thoroughly whetted your appetite, let's shove it full of dumb bullshit. It's Shilling time! More than other videos, I will probably spend a decent portion of these ones talking about my own writing, as Hanada and myself share a lot of the same ethos when it comes to storytelling. To any fans of mine, this is a major red flag. I won't be obnoxious about it, I promise, but I really want to emphasize that if you like the story I'm about to tell you, you will enjoy the hell out of my shit too. Specifically, I'd recommend starting with the novel Das Vidania. It was directly inspired by Fata Morgana and also won an award. But anyway, you may be thinking, this is all fine and well, but stories don't put weed on the counter. How can I pay you? Well, I'm glad you asked, hypothetical viewer that I sure hope exists out there. I have a Patreon! I do occasional exclusive live streams and write-ups of all visual novels I read, as I have to do research for this channel, guys. It's not just for fun. I'm monetizing my hobby like a good little American, I swear. But yeah, maybe check that out. Also, YouTube really hates recommending my videos because it doesn't think I'm marketable and zoomer-pilled. So if you want to actually be able to keep up with what I'm doing, consider joining the Discord server. Updates on the obnoxiously long list of everything I do are there, and the people there are pretty chill too. Poor Kaikina Cat is seriously lacking in virtual head pats, so please help her rectify this. Speaking of, the Discord server is also a great place to say hi to me and all the other voice actors, editors, and composers that made this video possible. Seriously, as amazing as I think my own writing is, I don't think I'm capable of making you sob by myself. That's all on them. So, as always, please take a moment to shout out your favorite performance in the comments. They all really like to see it. One final note. I'm not a big fan of trigger warnings, especially in the context of this story telling you exactly what to look out for will spoil several major plot points. Just know that Fata Morgana is a dark story, and I mean dark in almost every way you can think of. So, please, just bear that in mind. Okay, this intro has gone on way longer than usual. Thank you for bearing with me, and I'm so excited to show you what comes next. So please, whatever you do, dear viewers, do not let go of my hand.
Everlasting, I heard a voice calling out to me. So I vowed once more mutilated body arrives there once more.
Yeah, so as you can see, we're starting off great. As I explained in the intro, you gradually awaken. You can hear the distant sounds of rain and the crackle of a warm fire. The whole mansion around you seems swathed in darkness, save for that one tiny light. The one weakness in my style of video making is that it's hard to convey to you the raw mechanical prowess of this narration. If you are one of those people that just listens to these videos, I highly recommend giving the screen a brief glance at the very least, because props to both Hanada and the English translator, the script is divine. Oh, splendid. You have finally awoken. Good morning, Master. You can tell her good morning or don't respond at all. Either way, she expresses concern at your confusion. It seems like she knows you well and that she's been waiting a very long time for your return. But of course, as the reader, we have no context for any of this. Nothing has been given to us, and so we have amnesia in story. Back in the Higurashi videos, I spent a good deal of time speaking about how Ryukishi played with our emotions and knowledge as the reader in order to heighten the emotion and drama of the story in that unique way that only visual novels can really do. And Fata Morgana takes this concept and makes it the entire narrative conceit. I'm pointing out this extremely obvious example to help prepare you for much more discussion along these lines. You note that even if the maid seems pleased, the entire mansion seems to sit in this vague gloom. Oh my. You do not know who I am? Do you not know who you are, either? That is quite the predicament. If you cannot remember who you are, then who am I to serve? In her vague sort of way, the maid seems mildly distraught by this development. However, the maid, despite appearances, is not one to mope. She immediately has an idea. She is a servant of the house and is more than familiar with the numerous incidents that have taken place here. She proposes to show you the history of this mansion, which will perhaps cause you to recall who you are. You, quite obviously, show some hesitation, but the maid reassures you. And fear not. I merely entreat you not to let go of my hand. Should you hold it tightly, you need not worry about being washed away by the waves of history. Her palm is ice cold, matching the oppressive air of the house. As you walk, you pass by a window, and there appears to be nothing outside. Not just darkness. Nothing. The maid leads you to a formerly glass door, now long since shattered. Beyond, you seem to see a rose garden, and hear the distant sounds of children laughing. The maid opens the door, and we are swept headfirst into our opening tale. This intro is short and sweet. Bear in mind that Fata Morgana's pacing relies on the somehow unobtrusive verboseness of its prose. I think it works so well because it really does a lot of work to make you feel like you were in an old Gothic novel, where prose of a rather purple shade is fairly common. This means, of course, that for you it lasted all of about 2 seconds, but I hope in that short time I was able to convey the atmosphere well enough. Regardless, it is time for the tale of Rose Manor, and the children living inside. The mansion had an alluring air of beauty about it in that era. It was almost like something out of a fairy tale. Yes, I mean the maid will be your humble narrator for the tale we are about to weave. It seems like she knows a lot about it, at the very least. She goes on to describe that period of history as one of change. We're in the height of the Enlightenment era, after all. Although instead of these scientific advancements, the maid focuses on the advancements in art and how humanity was beginning to reawaken to the expressiveness of the Greeks and Romans. Presumably, at least. Throughout all of the following chapters, the only real concrete details we ever get about where we are is the year. Some of this vagueness was clearly done to make this whole story feel dreamlike, but I can't help feeling as if it's also due to Hanada making sure to cover his ass if he gets some of the elements of Western history wrong. Spoiler alert, he really doesn't. It is heavily implied throughout the narrative that we are located in England, which makes total sense. A very wealthy family lived in the house then. The mother and father, brother and sister, all had very distinct, beautiful flaxen hair. I was always enamored by their hair. See? There I am, standing around, looking rather a fool. Okay, so we know for a fact that the maid was around in this era. Good to know. Promptly, we are introduced to the two siblings who reside in the manor. The youngest is named Nellie, who in this moment seems like a little angel. Her older brother, more studious, serious, is named Mell. Nellie approaches Mell, who is currently studying a Latin textbook under a tree. He won't pay attention to her, so she promptly dumps the roses she's holding on his head.
Oh, Nellie, you've got petals on the book. This isn't mine. I can't afford to let it get dirty.
It's your fault, dearest Mell. I tried to get your attention.
Regardless of her transgression, Mell easily forgives her. Even if he teases her a bit, he clearly dotes on her. He pokes at her a little too much, and to make it up to her, he tells her he'll play whatever she wants today. She decides on make-believe.
I will be a princess taken captive by an evil kingdom, and you, dearest Mell, will be my valiant knight. And then you turn into a prince when you rescue me.
A knight can become a prince?
They can. Knights and princes both have to be charming, so of course they can. Which is why it has to be you, dearest Mell.
Mell proclaims Nellie his princess, and she makes him promise that he'll never be anyone else's. Would it not be wonderful if children could stay children forever, Master? As I see it, though, the pleasant, gentle times in our lives have value because they come to an end. Wouldn't you agree? The Maid guides you a few more years in the future, to where the siblings have both grown up. One, maybe a little more than the other. We cut back to Mell, currently studying with a priest at a church, although he has to leave early today to run an errand. As we can see, he's become somewhat of a dashing young man. Which makes this a good time to talk about the sprite art. I'm going to make somewhat more of an effort to talk about the accoutrements that accompany the writing in this series because I think it's all just as important in making this story work. The art, specifically the sprite art, really forgoes a lot of those classic anime stylings. It still looks a bit anime, but in that more vintage sort of way when the pugification of anime girls had not quite yet set in. Specifically, they really remind me of Ayami Kojima's work in the Castlevania series. I think it's specifically in the eyes. Her work in particular really harkens back to the goth revival of the late 90s and is another sort of gothic to lean into to make this story really work. Regardless of any posturing, I just simply think it's gorgeous. The priest really pushes Mell a bit to consider entering the clergy when he comes of age, but Mell doesn't seem too convinced. As we'll learn soon, Mell doesn't seem too convinced about doing anything. On the steps of the church, he runs into an old beggar and passes him a coin. Like a lot of kids his age, Mell is feeling a bit lost in life, it seems. As the maid helps to explain, he is considering university, which was a pretty big deal back in those days, but he doesn't really know what he actually wants to do with his life. Of course, if this were 100% historically accurate, Mell would not have a choice here. He is the eldest and only son of a noble, hence he would be expected to take up his father's title upon his death. But again, gotta give a little leeway considering that Hanada probably didn't have the conventions of Western history engraved into his brain as a child like I did. Regardless, it seems like Mell is suffering from a pretty universal problem plaguing children his age. Fata Morgana is primarily concerned with these universal problems. Though it really uses its specific setting to frame things in a unique way, at its core, its characters tend to deal with problems that have plagued humanity since our beginning and will continue to do so until our inevitable end. However, as the maid comments, it is envious that Mell really has a choice about how to live his life at all. He runs to do his errand, which it turns out involves picking up something from a jeweler's. We are not told whom the female recipient is, but considering that Mell gets embarrassed and claims to not have a sweetheart, it's clear that it's most likely for Nellie. The jeweler is surprised, but tells Mell to come back for work anytime he wants. He hurries home, and approaching the manor, the scent of roses pervades his senses. This distinctive smell has led to the mansion being nicknamed Rose Manor. In this time, it was well maintained and stately, and the maid appears to regret its more contemporary state.
Dearest Mell, what took you so long? I've been waiting forever.
One thing that you will start to notice as the story continues is the one convention that the narration likes to break. For being set in the Enlightenment era, the characters have a tendency to flip-flop between more period-appropriate and more modern speech patterns. Mell will say "yeah" quite a few times, and it will feel unnatural every time. According to what I could dig up, the original was written in more colloquial terminology, and the translator definitely wanted to maintain that, but I feel as if some work was done on the translator's part to still make the dialogue feel at least a little period. It kind of confuses me a bit, considering that in tone and atmosphere, Hanada and the team seem to have gothic sensibilities down so firmly, but then made the decision to have the characters speak in more modern ways, which is very out of tone. This will ultimately become my biggest criticism of the game, which honestly says a lot, considering it's so minor. I'm mostly going to cut around some of the more egregiously modern phrases, but I didn't want to hide the fact that they're there or anything, so there you go. In the years since we've seen her, Nellie has become a little firecracker. She's a lot sharper when it comes to verbally dueling her brother, but she also has a tendency to break down into name-calling.
You're such a dimwit, Mell. Jerk! Blockhead! Weakling!
In her defense, you did call her heavy.
Should you really be outside, Nellie? You are the star of today's event.
That's right, today is Nellie's birthday, and her family is hosting a big birthday party. She is not pleased about this, as all of the attendees are potential marital matches for her. Mell meekly mentions that she should try her best to enjoy the party, but she sweeps this conversation under the rug, changing the subject to her new dress.
Oh, I'm just absolutely in love with it. I think I'll be wearing this dress for a while to come.
Hanada. That was stupid. I know she only has one set of sprites, but that was stupid. Nellie jumps on Mell, proclaiming her love for him, and in the kerfuffle, he drops his present for her. Mell begs her not to open it yet, but of course Nellie doesn't listen and opens it anyway. It turns out to be a necklace with a rose on it, and Nellie loves it. Of course she does. It's from her Prince Mell.
A prince always knows exactly what his princess wants. And this princess wanted some rose jewelry to go with her new dress.
I sure don't have it easy playing your prince, Nellie. It might be about time you found a new one.
She responds that that's silly. If he wants to give up his role, he'll have to wait 10 years or find a new princess of his own. But Mell is an awkward lug, so that'll never happen, right? I'm not going to get quite into it yet, but a lot of the tension present in Fata Morgana is conveyed through giving the audience glimpses into the catastrophes that are bound to happen when certain pieces fall into place, and then making that exact occurrence reality. Like I said, no specifics yet in case you haven't picked up on the tension, but some trope pill viewers might already have a hankering about where this might be going. The maid comments that Mell is currently 17 and Nellie is 14. Tumultuous ages, all things considered. I do not envy them. I never want to go back to my fucking teens. Holy shit. Nellie's birthday party goes alright. She gets harassed by a bunch of would-be suitors, but Mell seems to be having a pretty good time.
These are pretty good. Want one? They're apples candied in rock sugar, I think.
You disappoint me, dearest Mell.
He, of course, asks her what's wrong, and she's very upset that he hasn't read her mind. Nellie, of course, wants none of this political marriage crap, but instead of this manifesting as wanting to find her true love or something like that, it seems more like Nellie just wants to stay a child and stay with Mell. I relate to that. I also had a lot of trouble wrapping my head around growing up in my teens. Of course, marrying Nellie off to increase familial connections was normal back then, so Mell is pretty unconcerned, but he definitely comes across as a bit callous to her feelings.
I won't date or marry anyone. I have no interest in being used as a pawn in their interfamily politics.
Pawn? I wouldn't go that far. And I'm sure Father wants to let you choose yourself. You know, someone you actually love.
Love? I never thought I would hear you talking about love, dearest Mell. You fell asleep during Romeo and Juliet, and you're talking about love?
Again, Nellie changes the subject, insisting that Mell dance with her. He's terrible at it, but he obliges, even if their father and mother are glaring at them. Nellie is supposed to dance with her guests, obviously not her brother. The maid explains that their parents were relatively lax in how they were raised, covering Hanada's ass and explaining how Mell was allowed to be an awkward nerd who doesn't know how to dance while still being the eldest son. However, Nellie seems happy with leading him around the dance floor, so I guess this is all fine. But before any parental intervention can occur, the partygoers hear a ruckus near the entrance. The sibling's father quickly gets the party going again. I went to go check on the entrance with the other servants, as I recall. However, as she states, this is not her tale, so we return back to the party. The festivities do, in the end, have to be cut short, however, as a classic unpredictable England rainstorm interrupts them. Nellie is happy, at least.
I'm not sure having your own birthday party cut short counts as lucky.
I can't help it if I'm not enjoying myself. And for heaven's sake, Arthur was here. I have no interest in dancing with that dunce.
Meanwhile, Mell doesn't even have a clue who that is. What a pair. The two speculate for a second about the ruckus that occurred earlier, but Nellie quickly bullies Mell into playing cards with her in her room, and nothing more is said about it. Later on that evening, Mell is having trouble sleeping, which is a somewhat unusual occurrence for him. He blames the rain, but his mind also wanders to what might have happened near the front entrance earlier that evening. Eventually, he decides to take a walk around the darkened halls to try to clear his head. The only sounds that could be heard in the dark corridors were the sharp pitter-patter of the rain, his footsteps, and his breathing. Though he was intimately familiar with the layout of the house, that night, the hallways felt like an endless labyrinth veiled in shadows. Ah yes, the classic gothic trope, twink hero can't sleep, wanders through dark mansion hallways and sees something he's not supposed to. We love that shit here. Also, I'm going to talk about it in much more detail later, but this music though, holy shit. Speaking of tropes, Mell ends up wandering over to the maid's quarters and stops in front of a certain Abigail's door. Mell, you scoundrel. There's still a light on inside, and though he hesitates, he eventually peeks through.
I shouldn't be doing this, but the voice, it feels like it's calling to me? Or someone else?
The maid reveals that it is, of course, her room that Mell is currently peeking into, but for some reason, she's not alone.
Who is that? Her skin, it's so pale you can practically see through it. Her hair is as white as snow, and her eyes, they're like... How do I describe it?
There is a mysterious girl sitting in the maid's chamber. Though for most anime-adjacent properties, her appearance isn't all that strange, Mell's first thought is to comment how it is. We are in the real world here, and a young woman with white hair and red eyes is very peculiar indeed. Regardless, beautiful as she is, she looks in a pretty bad way at the moment.
I apologize for the trouble.
Think nothing of it. Give your apologies and thanks to the mistress.
There is something strangely comforting about this house. Almost as if I've been here before. If my father were here, I'm sure he would be quite fond of it.
The maid suddenly apologizes and implies that something has since happened to her father. Maybe that's why she's here alone. It's becoming apparent that she was the source of the commotion earlier. The white-haired girl looks up just then, and Mell wonders for a second if she saw him. He bolts from the scene, all the way back to his bedroom. But even beneath his covers, he could not erase that girl's eyes from his memory, her melancholic red irises, her voice, delicate as a glass sculpture, her pale, almost lifeless skin, her pure white hair. Every single detail kept him from banishing her image from his mind. At the moment, we cut away from Mell, camped out in his bed, and back to the conversation between the maid and the white-haired girl. The latter comments on an odd feeling of being watched, but the maid brushes this off and asks her if she knows how people refer to the mansion. Why? Rose Manor, of course. But no, that's not what she meant. It is said that a witch resides within the house. The maid suggests the white-haired girl get some sleep, which, yeah, creep me out and then tell me to go to bed, sure thing. But before she goes, the maid asks her one thing. I do not believe you have given me your name yet.
My name is...
Ooh, and cock-blocked. That's right, my eternal punishment is that I will have to continue to write the phrase white-haired girl every time I mention her in this script. It rolls off the tongue, but I was not anticipating how much of a pain in the ass it is to type, holy shit. The next morning, Nellie wakes Mell up. He has, of course, overslept since he was up far too late. Mell dislikes that Nellie is in his room, but she brushes his thoughts aside. After bullying him a bit, Nellie nearly makes her exit, only to remember that she had a bit of hot goss to share with him.
We got a new maid today, from a house we have ties to, supposedly. I've never seen anyone like her before.
Mell asks if she has white hair, and, surprised, Nellie answers in the affirmative. But before she can get him to explain how he knows that, he rushes off. What a weirdo. The maid explains to us that a common occurrence in this time was to take in lesser noble daughters as maids in order to train them before they entered society. From what I'm aware, at this time I think this was a more common practice with ladies in waiting than actual servants, whose duties would have been different than, like, cleaning the house. But again, I'm being pedantic. Listen, Hanada gets everything pretty accurate, but I'm a nerd, so you gotta give me my actually moment. Anyway, Mell immediately rushes off to track down the white-haired girl, but realizes that he didn't really think through what he was actually going to say to her when he did, or where in the manner she might be. Finally, he runs into her cleaning a hallway and discovers that she cleans up pretty nice. He is immediately smitten. He addresses her, but for a second she merely blinks in surprise.
Lord Mell, yes? Your father informed me of you.
Did he? I guess I don't need to introduce myself then.
Did you have business with the mistress, Lord Mell? I can let her know if you would like.
No. I was looking for you.
Oh boy, this is going great. Though I'm obviously not going to torture my voice actors with this whole scene, I will inform you that actually reading this scene means struggling through about 5 straight minutes of awkward teenage dialogue, and I love it. Something that Hanada is really good at is naturalistic dialogue. If I had to guess, I would say this is why he decided to write the characters very colloquially, to feel natural. Sometimes it butts against its rather dramatic tone, but in quiet moments like this, it really works. The awkwardness between these two is palpable and reads so genuinely juvenile that it hurts. I have had conversations like this. I think everyone has had conversations like this when they were kids. It hurts in the best way possible when you have to press through 4 straight dialogue boxes of ellipses. Anyway, Mell eventually tells her that since she's a noble's daughter, she really doesn't have to do any actual cleaning, but she says she's doing it because she wants to. Grasping for something to talk about that's not herself, the white-haired girl comments about how beautiful the roses of the manor are, and Mell mentions how they were all grown by his late grandfather. In fact, he's the one who fixed up this whole place after purchasing it in ruin. It's technically the Rhodes family's second house, but it's the one that Mell and Nellie reside in most often. All of this cleanup is pretty remarkable considering the rumors about the place.
They say that all who dwell within this house shall be met with misfortune.
Jeez, this house has a witch in it, and curses. What the fuck doesn't it have? The ability to stop Mell from being an awkward fuck, clearly. He says the curse must not be true because of how his grandfather died.
Inside a lovely lady.
What?
Honestly, how are you supposed to react to being told that? Jesus Christ, Mell, get a fucking grip. After way too fucking long, he realizes how weird that statement was and apologizes. He talks a little more about his grandfather's renovations, which of course leads to the rose garden. Mell tells the white-haired girl that she can go pick roses whenever she wants, but she has to admit something to him.
I'm, sensitive to sunlight.
It's very interesting how grounded this story is in reality. It would have been so easy to just give this girl unnaturally white hair, to just imply angelicism with this gift, or to give it some supernatural cause. But instead, she's plagued with a very real medical condition. She looks like that for a very understandable reason, one that causes her a lot of strife in her life. And I just love the fact that even if it never plays a huge role in the story, the time is taken to detail her gift and her curse. Her curse, of course, being that she can rarely go outside in the day, and that people find her strange, maybe even demonic. The Christian faith was still a thing that everyone near universally took as fact at this time. She is surprised when Mell doesn't immediately act repulsed. Eventually, the conversation dies, and after asking about if his father often returns to this manor, simply out of curiosity, it seems, the white-haired girl makes her excuses and departs.
Oh, right. One moment. Since you're sensitive to the sun, I can pick some roses from time to time for you, for you to decorate your room. That's all. Sorry for holding you up.
Mell, you've got that patented Noah anti-riz. I knew there was a reason I cast him as you. In this moment, Mell thinks he's been an awkward, weird idiot and wants to crawl under a rock and die. But the white-haired girl's take on the situation seems a little different.
He is too kind.
A few days later, Mell is once again studying under the priest, but he's a little late, which is weird for him. The priest immediately detects something is up, and Mell confesses his girl problems. The priest offers him some advice, to make sure he determines exactly where she's from, to determine if she's suitable for him, of course. Mell departs and once again runs into that same beggar in front of the church.
He's going to have trouble making it through the summer. I should give him something while I still have the chance.
The maid comments that though the day was bright and peaceful for Mell, he's an extremely lucky boy, and the number of unlucky people far outweigh him, just like that beggar. Speaking of lucky people who don't appreciate it, we're cutting back to Nellie. She's being a handful and giving the maids a lot of trouble. She has arbitrarily decided to redecorate her bedroom and has enlisted all of the maids to help her. This, of course, includes the white-haired girl.
No, not like that. How many times must I tell you? The tapestry goes by the door, and I don't like this carpet pattern.
She's clearly frustrated about something and has elected to take it out on the servants. She'd make, just a great middle manager.
Get rid of all of it. The carpet, that chair, the desk, it's all so ugly. Don't we have anything better?
I avoided saying this earlier because she was kind of towing the line when Mell was around, but Nellie's grown into kind of a fucking brat, hasn't she? Currently, the white-haired girl is in that very awkward position where everyone is doing things around her, but no one has told her what she should be doing, so she's kind of just anxiously standing around feeling useless. God, I hate it when that happens. Eventually, Nellie notices her, which we immediately read is probably not a good thing. She mentions that she wanted to talk to her, actually, because she was so curious why her mother would not trade maids for her. This redecorating thing was really a scheme to just talk to her, actually. Again, because her parents refused to say anything about the matter of the white-haired girl. They say she's of noble birth, but Nellie's never seen her around. The white-haired girl claims she's from another country, but when pressed, could only be very vague about it.
Ah, Lady Nellie, that is the most wonderful painting.
She just tried to brush me off. I won't let her get away that easy.
The white-haired girl flatters her about it and does, in fact, proceed to get off that easy. This painting in particular is apparently one of Nellie and Mell when they were very young. Nellie was 4, so she doesn't really remember standing for it, though. Did you know, Master, that paintings are alive? They are drawn with a brush over an extended stretch of time, unlike photographs, which capture a single moment. Nellie tells the white-haired girl all about how much she loves Mell and how close they've always been and how he got her a little rose necklace and how he's her prince, but that he comes across as so awkward that no one else would ever say that about him.
He is quite the gentleman. I assumed women would be drawn to him.
What do you think about Mell? Don't think I'll let you get away with putting any funny ideas in his head. Mell is too trusting. He's pure of heart. So I won't stand for you trying to take advantage of him.
The white-haired girl denies any and all romantic attachment to Mell.
And you won't develop any?
I will not.
Nellie is satisfied, and the other maids quickly return, interrupting their conversation. Nellie never actually got to ask about the white-haired girl's family. Later, she tries to show Mell her new room layout, but he seems really distracted. In fact, he's currently looking for the white-haired girl. He and Nellie have a little tiff, leading to Nellie keeping what the white-haired girl said about him to herself.
She said she has no romantic interest in you.
Of course, she conveniently neglects to mention that she said this under duress. So one thing you may be starting to notice is A, how much Nellie seemingly worships Mell, and B, how she maybe seems to be a bit possessive over him. She is constantly going in his room, tells him that he's the only man allowed in hers, and is now actively trying to nip his feelings for the white-haired girl in the bud. It's, at this point, getting a little weird. Meanwhile, it's starting to appear that the white-haired girl is not quite as simple as she seems.
The master of the house isn't around, so next in line would be him. That painting.
Honda is really just out here laying down his little train tracks, occasionally looking up at us and waving while we wonder if we should inform him that he's setting it up for about 3 different trains to crash directly into each other. Meanwhile, some time passes, and despite Nellie's words, Mell still hasn't given up hope on the white-haired girl. Unfortunately for Mell, he's also a teenage boy, which means he has no idea what's fucking happening to him. I imagine, if you were to take him to see a romance at the theater in his present state, he would cry just as much as little Nellie. We cry at tragedies because we draw parallels with our own lives. The Maid here is actually touching on the concept of catharsis as first coined by one Aristotle. You know, you might have heard of him, but if I start talking about that, we'll be here all fucking day. By this point, the white-haired girl has definitely noticed she's being followed around by a puppy dog and seems a little less than thrilled about it. She doesn't hate him, but if anything, she seems a bit confused. One day, he runs across her in the library.
Boo! Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you.
Lord Mell, you very clearly meant to scare me.
We're back in the time before printing presses were super widespread yet, so when asking about what she's doing in here, the white-haired girl expresses amazement that they've collected so many books. Mell brags a little, shows her a really old one, probably written by a feudal lord.
Can this forsaken land only produce over-sour grapes? If only the largest of the, Barney, or maybe Barnier. If only the largest of the Barnier estates were mine instead. The land there is much more suitable to cultivation.
The white-haired girl is surprised he can read it. Of course, it's from the medieval period. It's probably written in pretty old English, or maybe even Latin. There's that, but also, while she doesn't outright say this to Mell, it's clear that she can't actually read, which is odd. If she's a noble's daughter, she should definitely know how to read, at least basically. They move on to the subject of stories in general, and the white-haired girl mentions that her father always used to tell her stories. She recalls one distinctly about an imprisoned girl, and Mell asks if she can tell it to him. So she obliges.
Once, there was a girl, and she was locked away in a mansion deep in the forest. A mansion with only one window. Though she may have been all alone in the mansion, she grew comfortable with the darkness in time, so she had nothing to be afraid of. And then, am I doing a good job?
You're doing fine. Keep going. What happens next?
The girl grew up alone in this dark mansion, mostly content, but eventually she became curious about the outside world, and so she wrote letters and threw them out of the one window. Of course, for months no one responded to her, until one day, a beautiful white dove arrived with a letter tied to its leg. It was from a man, and the two quickly began a correspondence by dove. Eventually, the man wanted to meet her.
The girl was unsure what to do. Should she tell him of how she lived? Should she reveal where she spent her days? She was afraid, if she did, he would cease to send her letters. She was sure he believed her to be a young lady of noble blood, and not a girl locked away in a house deep in the forest.
The girl initially didn't respond to this, but still the dove came back, and the man wanted to help her. She deliberated, but eventually responded. For a very long time, she received no word back from the man. However, one day the door to the mansion opened, revealing a prince from a neighboring kingdom. He swept her off her feet, and the two lived happily ever after. Mell asks the white-haired girl if she often dreams of having a prince come to sweep her off her feet, but she thinks she's a little too old for that, which surprises Mell. He assumed all girls must be like that since Nellie still is. Of course, Nellie's prince is Mell.
I mean, we used to play make-believe a lot when we were kids, but I very much doubt she still thinks of me that way in earnest. When she calls me her prince, it's mostly in jest. If it weren't, that would be concerning.
Buddy, I think it's getting to the point of concerning. Mell analyzes the white-haired girl's story a bit, wondering if her father wrote it, and if its hopeful ending is his hope for her, to see the world.
So, if you'd like, we could maybe go see distant lands together.
Speak of the devil and she shall appear! There's Nellie, right on cue, coming to bug Mell about something wholly insignificant. So close! Mell grows frustrated in his inability to simply convey his feelings, and this disturbs his sleep. In particular, he begins to feel a sort of presence in his room at night. In addition, he's been having bizarre dreams.
I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating? Don't you understand what you've done?
Pinning the blame on me. How nice it must be to be able to distort reality with panic.
You're just as guilty as any of us.
I never wanted her to die.
Mell wakes up in a cold sweat. The dream really got him, it seems. And then, once again, he feels a presence in his room. He can't move to fight it. But finally, it seems to go away. So, Mell's doing great! Meanwhile, in the middle of the night, the white-haired girl muses about her father's story and what Mell thought it meant. She wanders out to the rose garden and sees a lovely white rose. You know, you could have sneaked into his room rather easily then. No one was watching. Oh, you needn't pay me any mind. I shall not condemn you, no matter what you might do. Rather, I am on your side. If you wish for it, the mansion shall provide. You are in no danger whatsoever of getting caught.
You said that a witch lives in the mansion, did you not? I believe those rumors mockingly referred to me. I have been accused of being a witch before, which is amusing. I don't have any magical powers. I simply have an unusual appearance.
The white rose in her hand suddenly turns a deep shade of red. I wonder, did the girl locked in the mansion become a princess? We should lock up and head to bed. Make sure all the shutters are closed nice and tight, and then draw the bar on the door. I want you all to know that the disjointed nature of this exchange was not due to me cutting lines. In fact, the original, much longer version is even more cryptic and odd. However, I believe I got across the implications that need to exist. Something is up with the white-haired girl. I'm starting to suspect that she is up to no good, in fact. More time passes, and we have fully transitioned into summer. Mell has fallen more and more in love with the white-haired girl, and Nellie seems to be more and more irritated by it. Currently, she's harassing Mell about going somewhere with her. He says he's busy. He has a meeting at the priest's house tonight, but she won't have it.
Tell me, if you can't go today, when can you? When will you be willing to go out with me? When will you be willing to play cards with me, to have tea together?
I can't make any promises. I have things to do, obligations. And Nellie, you're almost an adult yourself. Stop acting like such a child.
Nellie expresses a severe disinterest in growing up, but is distracted by the maid. Apparently, her father wishes to see her about something. Mell wonders why she's been so crazy lately, and the maid, having not quite left yet, expresses confusion. Nellie is acting the same as always. It seems that Mell is the one growing up. While she's here, Mell gets a little cheeky and asks the maid for a favor, but we don't get to see what it is quite yet. On a cloudy day, the white-haired girl is out and about, running an errand for another maid. Of course, she just so happens to run into Mell. He tells her to abandon her errand and takes her on a little walk. Of course, this was the favor he asked from the maid. There is no errand at all, just a little pretext, as he explains to her. As always between them, awkwardness quickly ensues. Mell nearly asks her about that day back in Nellie's room when she said she had no feelings for him, but chickens out. However, he doesn't chicken out on what he's about to do next.
I never did get you those flowers like I promised. There was a single white rose blooming in the garden. I was planning to give it to you, but it disappeared before I had the chance. So, I'd like you to have this. It's not a real rose, but it won't wilt either.
And Mell presents her with an ornamental white rose, most likely made by the same jeweler that made Nellie's birthday present. He's laying his poor little heart out here.
My apologies. I cannot accept this.
He asks her why. Is it the design? Worries about the price? No, it's not any of those.
Why are you so kind to me? I'm sorry, I can't accept it.
The white-haired girl tries to run off, but Mell stops her. He wants a reason, but she can't give him one.
Something's wrong with me. From the day you arrived at the mansion, it's like I haven't been myself. Whether I try to study or whether I try to read, none of it sticks. It's all because of you.
I truly am sorry. Please, don't be any more generous than you already have. When I'm with you, my willpower wavers. I'm so sorry.
And she runs. And Mell cries. As he should, really. That went just about as poorly as it could have. Mell's good buddy the priest happens to be walking by, sees him, and asks what's wrong. Mell explains everything that just happened. Of course, the priest just passed her running down the street. But he has something he needs to tell Mell. He's seen that girl before. She visited the church with her father. Their clothes were tatters. They were skin and bones. She's not a noble at all, but a beggar. Which is weird. Why would Mell's parents lie? It could be a different girl, but Mell wonders if maybe that's why she feels unable to accept his affections. He determines that he can't change his feelings for her, but that he needs to find out where she came from. Meanwhile, remember that Nellie had a word with her father earlier that interrupted her talking to Mell. Yeah, we kind of learned what that was about now.
Why? Why would he suddenly throw that on me? He didn't even ask for my opinions. No, I won't do it. I'm fine just the way things are. I'm just fine. Dearest Mell, I need your help.
It seems that, perhaps, her parents' tolerance of her not getting a boy has reached its limit. You know, if I had to guess. This may seem sudden, but I must confess that I made a grave mistake. My hands were full dealing with my immediate day-to-day tasks, so I could do naught but pray there was happiness waiting in the future. I am but a mere maid. There are limits to what I am allowed to do, and furthermore, it was not my place to offer her my hand. Mell is once again trying to sleep, but it's not happening. He feels that presence in his room again. He's pretending to be asleep, hoping they'll go away. But alas, now they're on his bed. A hand is around his neck. He opens his eyes.
Why?
You smell of roses, the scent of a world far removed from ours. I told you to stop being so kind to me. It will all be over soon. To put an end to this family, you are my only...
Why are you shaking?
He wasn't asking why she was doing this. His only thought was concern for her. The strength immediately leaves her hand. Mell uses the opportunity to get a couple of words in. He claims that she must not be doing this of her own will since she hesitated. She denies this, but not very strongly. Of course, she's also been in his room before. She has been that presence he's been repeatedly sensing. She asks him why he's not afraid, why he hasn't run.
Because I cannot fathom why you would do this. So I'm not afraid. Do you hate me so deeply? You want me dead?
But of course she doesn't, so there must be another reason. She tries to extract herself from the situation, but Mell immediately guesses that it has something to do with her lineage. He begs her to tell him who she is. Still, she hesitates.
I want to be the prince who whisks you away. I want to be like the prince who rescued the girl from the dark mansion and showed her the world. I know I'm not that dependable.
Why do you show me such compassion? I have my hand around your neck.
Why? I thought it would be obvious. Or have I not expressed myself well enough? I love you.
The white-haired girl acquiesces, saying that she's tried so many times to hate him, so many times to kill him, but she just can't. He asks her again to tell him why, promising that even if she doesn't return his affections, that she'll be well taken care of.
Those are the words of a man of means, Lord Mell. Of someone blessed enough to have pity for others.
See, this is what I mean when I say that Hanada can fucking write, man. Someone blessed enough to have pity for others is the rawest fucking thing I've ever read. But finally, the white-haired girl agrees to tell him her tale.
On the night of the storm, I paid a visit to Rose Manor. My father and I were always on the move, traveling across the land by foot. There are several reasons we couldn't stay in one place.
One, of course, was her nearly frightening appearance. Two, her father was a down-and-out painter. By the time they made it to the city by Rose Manor, her father was dying.
Rhodes is a name my father could never forget. He was, long ago, a painter in service of the Rhodes family. My father was chased from your house just because they didn't like something he painted.
Because he'd been dismissed from a patronage, of course no one else would take him on. She was so averse to the rose he tried to give her because that jeweler had nothing more than her own father did but a good reputation. Her father died here, in her arms. She largely blames her own appearance for their hardship, but that's not the only place her ire lies.
I disdained the Rhodes family for putting my father through such hardship. I imagined you were still living in decadence, acting as though nothing had ever happened. No, you wouldn't even care about the fate of one simple painter. Our lives meant nothing to you, and so I sought to bring misfortune upon you.
Of course, her original target was Mell's father, but he's hardly ever around, so Mell himself was the next best thing. Now that he knows everything, she begs him to punish her, but he refuses. He'd never put the one he loves through more hardship. He expresses dismay that he couldn't have helped her father, and adds that she hasn't actually done anything, so why punish her? And the reason she hesitated? Simple. Nothing here was as expected. Mell's mother saw this sad girl on her doorstep and immediately took her in as a maid. There is kindness here in this mansion. Specifically, Mell is kind.
Please, don't say you want to leave. Don't ask me to punish you. I couldn't do anything for your father, but at least allow me to do something for the daughter he cared for so dearly.
He tells her that he can make her into a real aristocrat. It's a simple scheme, just get a family to adopt her, and they would want to if it would bring them a connection with the Rhodes family. The white-haired girl is stunned. Her hand is still on his neck, but he simply says that he doesn't want to lose her. He tells her that he isn't very romantic, but that he'll take care of her, and she hopes she'll have him. He even suggests they go to the theater.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say. How could you show such compassion for me? I tried to inflict harm upon you. Am I allowed to feel such joy?
For every day you suffered, a day of happiness.
He whispers her name and hugs her close. This scene is obviously the emotional core of this chapter. It is the place where all of the tension from the first half is released. The lovers have finally made honest people of each other and are going to try to make it work. Of course, Mell's mindset is naive. He thinks it'll be really easy to not only begin this affair with her, but to make it stick. As she stated, Mell comes from a place of privilege. Right now, he really does appear like a prince that'll whisk her away. Of course, it also seems like we finally made an honest woman of the white-haired girl. It is odd, however, that we still can't know her name. The next day, Mell approaches the maid and asks her to dress up the white-haired girl in the finest clothes they have. The maid likes them both, so of course agrees to help. I never anticipated what would happen next, though. Perhaps my hopes were unreasonable, after all. And now we cut to the theater! An absolutely marvelous place for things to come to a head, and they most certainly are, because we are not following Mell and the white-haired girl at the moment. Oh no, we are following Nellie, and Nellie's fiancé.
Now, Nellie, you love the theatre, so don't look so cross.
We learn from the maid that Nellie has fought this tooth and nail, including locking herself in her room and sobbing. And that's not even the fiancé bit, that's just the going out with him part. And even if the maids did what they could to get her out the door, she is pouting to the best of her ability, which is great.
Stop talking already! Why should I have to marry someone like you? Whatever it takes, I will put a stop to this.
Your parents gave you too much freedom, and look what a spoiled little girl you became because of it. Goodness, you're going to be quite the handful.
Yeah, so even if Nellie is a little bitch, he's just as much of a bastard to match. They are horrible for each other, and there is no way this goes well at all. Arthur says some terrible things to her, and as her only defense against this cruel fate, Nellie thinks to herself that if she tells Mell, he'll surely help her.
What is that?
Wait! Nellie, get back here! What is that damned child's problem?
Meanwhile, let's check in on who exactly it was Nellie saw and had to dash off so quickly to confirm. Why, yes, of course, it is Mell. And the white-haired girl. Man, those trains are getting awfully close, aren't they, Hanada? The white-haired girl is very nervous. She thinks that people are looking at her because she's strange, but Mell assures her that she's gorgeous. And I mean, that dress does look hella good on her. The maid really outdid herself. They flirt a little bit, and finally, it seems things might work out between these two. I dare say they're a touch adorable, but oh yeah. Here comes Nellie.
Dearest Mell, what are you doing here?
I asked her to join me. It's nothing to get worked up over.
It is! It absolutely is! How many times did I ask you to come with me and you wouldn't? You don't even like theater, dearest Mell, and you brought her? She isn't good enough for you! Why would you choose her? She's creepy and you have no idea where she came from.
Mell obviously gets quite upset over what she's saying about his new lover, mostly because even if she doesn't know it, she's hitting her exactly where it hurts. So he tells her a lie to get her off his back. He says she comes from a respectable house, and when Nellie sees right through his shit, this causes Mell to get a little heated. But he quickly calms down. However, this begs the question, what is Nellie doing at the theater? She explains the situation and begs him to help her.
Oh, right, that. I already know. I heard about it from Father. Is that who you're here with today? In that case, you should get back to him, rather than waste any more time with us.
Okay. Ow. Nellie did say some pretty callous things about the white-haired girl, but for Mell to turn right around and just be okay with this? The white-haired girl tries to speak, but Nellie directs her ire to her instead.
You stay out of this! It's all your fault! It's all because you showed up and played your little tricks on him! I warned you about this rat, dearest Mell. She's not suitable for—
I told you I'd had enough already! How much longer are you going to continue acting like a child? I can deal with you being a spoiled little girl, but how dare you be so derisive to someone else?
Yeah, so he just hit her, which is not great. He commands her to return to her betrothed, and she is quite obviously too shocked to actually do much of anything. After blubbering for a second, she runs. Mell chooses not to go after her. She's just going to go back to the house after all. The white-haired girl, it seems, feels some sympathy for her and apologizes for getting in the middle of them. Mell denies this and goes to apologize to her fiancé on her behalf. Master, what are your thoughts on the tale so far? Which of the siblings do you think was in the right? Why, thank you, Maid, for providing me with a wonderful transition. I love that the story builds in moments that are meant for you to sit back and just go, what the fuck? So, this scene. Obviously, I want to talk about this scene. I've talked about similar sentiments in previous videos, though I think the best breakdown of my thoughts is present in the Andy and Lele video. But this scene, and Fata Morgana as a whole, really loves to illustrate one of my favorite facets of writing. That is, of course, the very thing the Maid just brought up. Who among the siblings is right? For my reread of Fata Morgana before I made this video, I brought along my good buddy and fellow writer Miceman, also known for playing Phoenix Wright on this channel, and we had a very long discussion of this scene because the fact is that this situation is incredibly complicated. So first, let's take it from Nellie's perspective. She had an incredibly good, incredibly easy life before the white-haired girl got here. She had her brother at her beck and call, she could do whatever she wanted and go wherever she wanted, and overall had an incredibly easy childhood. The fact of the matter is that she's only 14. She's still, developmental-wise, if not societally at this point, a child. She's not ready to be an adult, and frankly, why should she? Everyone around her, especially Mell, has entirely failed to prepare her for this transition, so why shouldn't she fight against it? Why wouldn't she see her wonderful life slipping through her fingers and not try to protect it? Not try to lash out when even her closest ally has betrayed her? And of course, even if she's not directly responsible, who showed up right when everything started changing? The white-haired girl. Nellie is absolutely a spoiled brat, there is no defending that, but children only become spoiled brats when those around them allow them to be, and do nothing to discourage that behavior. But alright, speaking of Mell, let's talk about him. First of all, this is the first scene that illustrates something very peculiar about Mell. He can be the nicest person in the world to you as long as you're someone that he cares about. Anyone that he doesn't gets ignored, essentially, or in this case, hit. It's a very noble perspective of life and people. For the most part, we've only been seeing that nice side of him up until now, but this scene should be a bit of an eye-opener for us as readers. Mell isn't just our blameless protagonist. He's not necessarily a good person either. Of course, from his perspective, his actions are entirely justified. Nellie did just rail into his new girlfriend, and Mell is at the point in his life where he finally wants to grow up, wants to become an adult, but Nellie is actively trying to prevent that. The age gap between 14 and 17 is one of the largest there is in children, and Mell is clearly frustrated with his sister for not unjustifiable reasons. He's trying to move on, and she's trying to cling to him even tighter than before in response. However, in the end, he's really getting his just desserts, as he's one of the principal culprits that allowed Nellie to act this way for so long. So finally, let's return to the Maid's question. Which of the siblings is right? You, as a reader, could very well have come up with an answer. You could have picked one based on your personal experiences and biases, or thought long and hard about it and come to a concise, justified answer. You could also have come to the somewhat more nuanced take of neither of them are necessarily wrong, and circumstances beyond their control have led them to this standoff. Personally, I think that while both sides have reasonable justifications, nobody's right, everyone's an asshole, and I hate Hanada for putting us here. I'm kidding. I love you, man. This is awesome stuff. The Maid doesn't really give us her own opinion on the matter. Rather, she simply describes how Nellie did, in fact, flee back to the manor and locked herself in her bedroom.
Why won't you help me, Mell? Why won't you take my side?
Of course, in Nellie's mind, her precious Mell would never do anything to hurt her, and she loves him too much to be upset at him, so her ire turns to someone else.
She told me she had no feelings for you. That liar. That liar!
Nellie rampages through her room, breaking all her shit. Eventually, she knocks down the painting that hangs on her wall, the one of her and Mell.
You're not a princess anymore, Nellie. Some other woman has taken your place. This painting is nothing but a lie. That's not the real Mell. That's not the real me.
In frustration, she scratches at the painting, tearing it to pieces, but as she does so, she finds something beneath the paint. A date. The painting was apparently completed in 1587, which is before Nellie was born. Furthermore, Mell would have been just a baby. So who are these children in the painting? Nellie continues to scratch the paint away and reveals something else. Text.
This is how I envision your son and our unborn daughter might look several years from now.
But our unborn daughter doesn't make any sense, as Nellie wouldn't have even been conceived in that year. So who is that in the picture with Mell? There appears to be even more. Nellie continues scratching at it, and finally ends up with the whole thing. If our unborn child does not have your hair color, then you will probably not be able to take her in as your own. I will be punished, and my life made miserable. And so I pray that this child might have flaxen hair. Nellie doesn't really understand this at first. However, we might. There are some very obvious pieces that one can hypothetically put together here, and I've given you all of them. Feel that sinking in your stomach? Yeah, I do too. Every time. Those trains have started blowing their horns at each other, but I don't think there's any way to stop this now. Later that evening, Nellie goes to visit the white-haired girl in her room. She's being surprisingly nice to her, but she has a strange question. She's not here to ask her about Mell. Rather, she's here to ask her about her father. Specifically, what color hair he had. To the white-haired girl's recollection, it was white, though that was just because he was old. Nellie, on the other hand, seems to read something different from this.
Hey, guess what? I figured it out. I figured it all out. And it was so simple. There's only one difference between you and me. The thing that Mell fell for is...
Ah, we have finally reached this point in the tale, Master. If your memory has been refreshed, then we can return to the mansion immediately. Very well, then. If you insist, Master, we shall proceed with the story. Mell is asleep. Or at least he's trying to be. It's another stormy night, just like the one that started all this. Suddenly, he senses the presence of someone in the room. He starts to speak, but the person presses a finger to his lips. A flash of lightning illuminates her silhouette, revealing the white-haired girl, although she seems a little more forward than before.
Well, I suppose you always were quite daring. This isn't the first time you've sneaked into my bedchamber.
He makes to turn on a light, but she kisses him to stop him. And then another flash of lightning shows him her face.
Get off me!
That wasn't very nice. No need to be so rough. This isn't the first time she's visited your bedchamber. Or did I not kiss you in the same way?
This is, quite obviously, a scene we have fully dubbed. There is actually no way I can do this one justice in this video, so please, if there's one thing you do, go watch it. Mell asks why she's doing this, and she responds, well, because he likes white hair, doesn't he? So the question is, then, how did Nellie get her hair to be that color? He grips her tightly. He hurts her, but all Nellie says is that she made her leave. Obviously, he doesn't want to take this for an answer.
It's always her with you! What more could you want from me? Tell me, what does she have that I don't?
Mell finally understands that Nellie's feelings towards him are more than that of familial affection. and we understand that Nellie knows she has felt this way this whole time.
Stop! Stop having these insane feelings for me! It's disgusting!
Poor Mell. Content in your complete ignorance. All right, I'll tell you everything. Mell, you can only love blood-related women.
Hey, what does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? What it means is that Nellie isn't Mel's only sister. Yep, that's right. The white-haired girl is, too. Nellie explains it all to him, how the white-haired girl's father was the painter for their house, and how he wasn't dismissed because of a painting they didn't like. It was because he slept with Mel's mother. The affair was discovered when their daughter was born without the characteristic flaxen hair of the Rhodes family. Of course, this is why their mother took in the white-haired girl as a maid without question, why she lied about her origins. What this is all culminating in is Nellie's thoughts on this situation.
You just don't understand anything. How I feel. How much I've suffered. Do you have any idea how long I've loved you? Knowing that you would never accept my affections. But then... Fancy that? You fell in love with your half-sister. Then I should qualify for your love too. Shouldn't I, Mell?
Mell denies this, tries to run. But before he does, Nellie mentions the painting. And then we get to hear some of her thoughts on the matter, almost in the form of a letter. She confesses how in her life she feels just like a doll for her family to play with, and so she acts like a brat as the only form of rebellion she has. She feels that Mell is the only person who ever cared about her, and she knew, deep down, that someday he would find someone, and she would get left behind. She knows that she would eventually come to terms with this, except for the fact that the person he did fall for also happens to be his sister. Mell flees from the mansion, from his sister, and heads to the only place he feels he can, the church. He feels that God will be able to offer him counsel, but of course in the middle of the night the church is locked, and the priest isn't around.
Why won't anyone tell me the truth? Have I sinned? No, I didn't know anything. I didn't know. No, none of it's true. So, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not at fault, am I?
He kind of sounds like he's trying to convince himself.
What good is the church? What good is theology? What good is God?
He sees something moving near him. He turns, only to come face to face with the beggar that he saw earlier. The beggar reaches towards him.
Get your filthy hands off me!
Yeah, you know how I was talking about how Mel's kind persona is only skin deep before? Well, if you needed proof, because this person isn't the beggar he's been seeing all summer. He sees the face of the figure just then. Sure, their head has been shaved, but their eyes are those of his beloved white-haired girl. She runs, and he chases after her, apologizing as he goes. He finally corners her, but she begs him not to turn the street corner to see her. He explains that he didn't know it was her and to please come back. He also asks if she knew anything, without explicitly mentioning it, but she denies it. Of course, Nellie's the only one who knows, and she'll be engaged and married soon, so nobody has to know. But the white-haired girl will not come back with him.
Now I truly look the part of the hideous witch. But I am to blame. It was a sin for me to find happiness in your kindness. That story never had an ending. I doubt the girl ever wrote that letter.
And though he reaches out his hand and begs again, the white-haired girl is gone. Mell collapses to the ground, asking God where he went wrong. But it isn't God who answers.
Your error was likely your kindness, thoughtlessly, haphazardly spreading your generosity. But that generosity came from your own desire to avoid pain, for your own happiness.
She claims that Mell never cared about the white-haired girl. He just wanted to be happy himself.
I just wanted those tranquil days to last. They were supposed to last forever.
At some point, your childhood must come to an end. And that ending may not be the one you anticipated.
In the end, Mell too did not want to grow up. In a way, he was just like Nellie. And this is the end of the story. The maid calls you back to the house, and the door to the garden closes. There are no more roses growing there now. So, that was the first chapter of Fata Morgana! As it has probably been made clear to you by now, we will not be following the adventures of Mell the sister fucker through the rest of the narrative. Instead, we will be moving on to greener pastures of inevitably more heinous tragedy. But before we do, let's take a moment to reflect on our journey thus far, because there is a lot to talk about. I think we've discussed the plot and the characters quite enough through the tale, but I want to bring up something specific. I want to talk about the twist. Because Hana does something really genius here, something I like to call the two-layer twist. Essentially how it works is that Hanada, as the author, dangled a twist in your face. In this case, it is the fact that Nellie has romantic feelings for Mell, and how this is inevitably going to come to a head as soon as he and the white-haired girl work out. I was also using the metaphor of toy trains to get across this one, how, since the twist is so apparent, it sinks into you, causes you to feel such a lingering sense of foreboding about where the story might be heading, which is great. Even if a twist is obvious, it can still be effective, and this is a great example. However, I said it was two-layered, didn't I? Because you were so focused on that inevitable final twist, and thus assumed you had the whole story figured out, you didn't notice as much all the extra little details. The painting in Nellie's room, the amount of time we spend detailing the white-haired girl's father and backstory, even if we could have left it a lot more vague and still gotten the same thing out of it. Until, finally, right as that first twist is hitting, another twist hits the narrative. This is, of course, the fact that Mell and the white-haired girl are also siblings. It's a brilliant way to execute this first chapter. A, because it makes a damn good story, and B, because it is the best way to prime you as the reader for how the rest of this story is going to go. Putting it simply, the lesson this chapter taught you was that this story is going to fuck with you. This story is malicious. It is you against the story. Can you solve its mysteries before it tears your heart in twain? Probably not, but it certainly invites you to try, because that final twist is so devilishly ironic that it feels almost pointed, doesn't it? Needless to say, I'll have much more to add onto this point as we go, but for now, please grab my hand again, and let's continue. Because we now return to you, yes you, wandering through the mansion with the maid. It seems that you don't remember anything quite yet. The maid vows that she is always on your side, and you begin to make your way to the next door. On the way, the maid speculates about something interesting you might not have considered, Mell and Nellie's father.
Do you think he knew about the white-haired girl? If he did, then perhaps he allowed her to stay because of how deeply he loved his wife. Or maybe because he did not want people to find out about her.
Regardless, it is not their tale we're following, but it is always good to think about the alternative perspectives, isn't it? As you pass back through the room you woke up in, you become curious about the maid. You ask her her name, but she kind of dodges the question, insisting that you simply call her the maid. Oh, that's right. We haven't talked about her yet. She's quite mysterious, isn't she? She seems ice cold to the touch and was present in the previous tale, yet seems more disconnected from it than anything. Indeed, at the end of Mell's story, she seemed to almost reproach him like some sort of judging figure. Our biggest overarching mystery for this first video is who the hell the maid is. We won't know that answer for quite a while, but keep your eyes peeled in the meantime. As the last chapter taught us, any odd, out-of-place moments could be the answer that unravels the entire truth. While you're walking, the two of you happen to pass by a mirror, and you notice that neither of you have a reflection. Odd. But before long, you find yourself at a doorway leading into a cellar. It immediately reads as an unpleasant place, and the maid is not helping.
Though it pains me to say as much in your presence, master, this house is cursed. Yes, it is a curse that runs deep. As you just bore witness to, the majority of those who dwell within these walls fall into misfortune. Why did such tragedies befall them? If I were to guess, master, it was because you had not returned. But when you remember your true self, the mansion's curse should be broken.
All very fairy tale-esque, Miss Maid, but we have reached the next door, which leads directly into the cellar. You can hear the sound of something devouring meat from beyond it. But the maid doesn't let us hesitate. With a much more ominous intro, it's time for the second door. Before we begin this chapter, I just want to prime you about something. Chapter 2, I think, is the biggest drop-off point for someone trying to read this story, and it's not necessarily unwarranted. After the absolute high that was the first chapter, this story is a little scrappy in comparison. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of good stuff in here, and this chapter serves several purposes that will not be made clear until much later on, but its moment-to-moment experience is not quite as masterful as that which came before, or that which will come after. It's also the longest of the 3 doors we'll be seeing today, so yippee!
The mansion sat in ruins in that era. Not a soul resided within. Not a flower grew in the garden. Dust and dirt blackened the plaster. Cobwebs blanketed the corridors. Ivy shrouded the walls. It was not a pleasant sight. As hard as I tried to fight it, I could not stop the mansion's descent into disrepair. The depth of the previous owner's grief, or perhaps despair, was far too much.
So you might be noticing something immediately. We are, as the door stated, now in the year 1707, which is 102 years after the first door. So, why is the maid still here? Listen to me. Come here. Come closer. Go, okay?
We're not gonna worry about that right now. I promise. It's fine.
We learn that neither Mell nor Nellie ever had any children, and so the Rhodes family bloodline died, leaving the mansion abandoned for the last 50 years. People stayed away from the mansion, leaving the maid alone. Until one day, she finally sensed a new presence within the walls, and that someone is in the cellar.
Is anyone there? Oh my, this is quite something.
So yeah, we're doing this now. What the fuck is that thing, and why is it doing that with its mouth? I have obviously added a bit of voice acting on top of it to fit with the rest of the video, but I want you to know that the original sound here is a fucking record scratch. You might have heard it mixed in with the audio. There is an odor emanating from the being that the maid refers to as a man. She quickly corrects herself by calling him a beast, going by his sharp teeth. He is surrounded by a red liquid which the maid finally realizes is not wine. He also has a sword that's covered in the stuff. While she's hesitant, the maid is made of firmer stuff than that.
Tell me, were you summoned here by the mansion?
That's a weird question to ask. She suggests to him that he can take whatever he wants of the furniture, and if he cleans himself up, he can sell it and make his way out of these parts. It seems he cannot understand her. This is obviously not a great situation the maid has found herself in, but this poor woman is so starved for a conversation that she just up and suggests he stay here and be her new master.
The mansion sat near the ocean. To say it was perched upon a cliff might make it sound rather intimidating, but you could see the beautifully clear sea through the windows, a glittering expanse of emerald and turquoise.
Hey, so, was the mansion always on a cliff? It was never described as such in the last chapter. The maid also describes the mansion as being surrounded by wetlands all of a sudden, and that in this era a great war has just ended. The kingdom where we are located apparently lost and are now under new management, but the people are so exhausted from the struggle that they just want to go back to living their lives. Likewise, if a land can heal, then so can a beast. The maid goes about the endeavor of trying to make the beast into a man. We are clearly seeing a specific reference point for the story by now, I'm sure. She dresses him up in whatever she can find, she cooks for him and tries to teach him table manners, though she realizes, perhaps a touch late, that she should probably teach him to speak first. She asks him what his name is, and he finally stutters out the word, Bestia.
I see. Then that is what I shall call you. Bestia.
You, as in both the character and you, the reader, might be wondering how the maid hasn't come to harm yet. She makes a vague statement about him trying, but somehow failing, the only reason being given that she is a servant of this house. Anyway, things begin to go surprisingly well. Bestia learns the maid's language and even helps her with the gardening. As they're pulling up the weeds, Bestia finds something buried deep in the soil. A white, ornamental rose. He stares at it intently.
I hear roses make wonderful gifts.
It seems to her that he wants to give it to someone specifically, but quite obviously he can't communicate to who yet. The maid wonders who he is, really, so to that end, asks him a question.
What is it that you desire, Bestia? This mansion fulfills people's dreams. If you yearn for something,
Want. Live peace.
Bestia then appears to have a Vietnam War flashback. We hear the voices of countless people calling him a beast and threatening to kill him. Maybe that's why he was covered in blood in the cellar. Also, Maid, I clocked that. What do you mean the mansion grants wishes? I thought it was cursed? Or that there was a witch living in it? Maid, I think you're just making shit up at this point. Eventually, Bestia does begin to act more person-like, and the mansion quickly follows suit. It's still kind of a mess, but not quite as much as before. Bestia goes out to the woods to hunt for their food, and the two both almost seem content. However, we know that that was never going to last long. One day, a man wanders up to the door, asking for food. Bestia does not stop her, so the maid offers to help the man with some sustenance. However, Bestia himself appears, and does him one better.
Let him in.
Bestia has seemingly undergone a strange transformation. He's now acting more like a man and true master of this house than the maid has ever seen him.
Prepare him a meal and a bed. I suspect he is quite tired.
Over dinner, we learn that this man is an international merchant who got lost in the forest. He's worried, primarily, about a girl back home that he thought he'd never see again. They quite obviously don't get to see each other very often since he's always traveling, but apparently she always waits for him. The conversation is almost pleasant. Things are going well. However, then the merchant brings up a rumor he heard in the nearby village, and things start to go less well. He says that there's apparently a beast living in this forest, one who killed several villagers before disappearing. In fact, the local blacksmith gave the merchant a knife to defend himself, just in case he happened upon the beast.
The knife? You brought a knife? You're here to kill me with that knife?
He, kinda freaks out. He seems genuinely terrified that this man is going to kill him, just like the last time. Seems like he might be the beast from the rumors. Eventually, his gentlemanly facade comes down entirely. The merchant is obviously horrified at what's happening.
You act like you own me. Just realized I'm a beast. That's right! I'm a beast! I killed them, and I'll do the same to you!
The merchant tries to flee, but Bestia already has his sword out. Damn, I feel like I need to start playing like some heavy metal or something right about now. So Bestia goes on for quite a while like this. Maybe a little too long? Maybe this is going to be a trend of this chapter? For the sake of sparing poor Mizutoka's vocal cords, we'll just say that this does not end well, although I can't let this absolutely insane laughter go to waste now, can I? The maid simply cannot comprehend how this entirely peaceful meal turned into a bloodbath with just the emergence of a knife. The other problem is that Bestia is quite clearly enjoying it.
Master, can you understand how he felt? Even just a little. Did he not yearn for peace, but for slaughter?
So with that, let's cut to something completely different!
All right, that does it for today's shopping. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, snack time!
This is Pauline. She's currently eating a ham sandwich in a park. She seems like a pleasant, nearly ditzy sort of woman, but also prone to introspection.
If he were here, it would taste even better. I wonder when I'll get to see him next.
If he were here, huh? Oh no. Don't tell me. Just then, Pauline's mother finds her in the park, but as soon as she sees her, she bursts into tears. It seems like she has some bad news for her. Pauline's beau, apparently a merchant of some kind, is dead. Ah, shit. That's the guy Bestia just murked, isn't it? And how is he doing? Well, not good! After that first murder, it seems he's taken a liking to it. He has returned to being the beast the maid found in the cellar, despite both of their best efforts, and the maid keeps her distance. However, he does eventually find her hiding place.
More. I must satisfy these urges.
Are you saying peace was not enough to sate you?
I was mistaken. Asking for peace won't solve anything. Blood, despair, eyes filled with terror. These are the things I need.
Anyway, welcome to the stage, future school shooter Bestia. Anyway, like the maid said, the mansion grants wishes, so it isn't very long before more people begin arriving, a small trickle wandering into the forest. Bestia always plays the noble host, treating them like honored guests before murdering them horribly. It seems that, all the time he's killing, however, he continues to see those flashbacks of being called a beast, a monster. It appears this killing spree is almost being done for vengeance.
That's it. Cry for me. Beg for your life. Weep and struggle and suffer and die.
And still, he demands more prey. The maid goes on to describe some of the terrible things he does to his victims.
Every week, another atrocious party. He did everything imaginable.
Guys, this section goes on for so long, I'm scrolling through the script like a madwoman. Holy hell. Obviously, this section serves to prove a point. We have to wallow in Bestia's mad destruction so that we can see how truly awful it is. We are not allowed to look away. We will see everything he's done in perverse detail. This section is acceptable. Others later on, not so much. Eventually, however, as most serial killers do, he has to escalate in order to get the same thrill.
Can't you give me any better prey? Something truly exquisite. The perfect prey to quench this maddening thirst of mine.
And of course, it does.
Is anyone there? I've lost my way. Would you please be so kind as to spare me a little food?
He tells the stranger, of course, yes, he will treat them as a guest. And just, who is this guest? Why, it's the white-haired girl. Her hair is shorter this time. She potentially looks a little older, but this is definitely her. There's no mistaking her. The maid even makes it clear that this is definitely the same person. But again, it's 100 years later. What the hell is she doing here? Her beauty seems to stun the beast, for just a moment, but he steels himself. This is exactly what he wanted, after all. The perfect prey. He gives her dinner and asks the maid to provide her with a dress.
Even the outfit she'd only worn for one night so many years before was there, waiting for someone to put it on again. For her to put it on again.
However, the white-haired girl rejects this dress. She does not need such fine attire. Well, regardless, she is sent off to bed with a little kiss and a pat on the bum, and now the slaughter can begin.
Just imagining how such a beautiful woman will scream. How she'll beg for her life. Hey, are you still there? The mansion has given me the perfect offering.
But the maid does not respond. She's not here right now. Instead,
Is someone there?
Yes. I came by to ask if there was anything you needed. I cannot offer you anything extravagant, not like before, but I am here to provide you with anything in my capacity.
You might think this is an odd question, but have we met before?
she also feels as if the mansion is familiar. So she clearly does not remember her previous time in this mansion, at least not entirely. It's odd. She seems to find the maid familiar, but as soon as she asks about Mell and Nellie, the white-haired girl does not recall them whatsoever. Then, the maid asks her name. Apparently, it is the same as last time, though we are still not privy to just what it might be. The maid bids her goodnight, offering to make her tea in the morning, but of course, morning probably won't come. Bestia enters her bedchamber. She is sitting up in bed. Apparently, she heard his footsteps.
And what were you planning to do when I got here? Surely you didn't think we'd simply have a nice midnight chat.
I was hoping to ask what it was that you wanted.
Do you even realize what you're saying? Can you not see what's in my hand? You know exactly what I came here to do. Aren't you going to beg? Aren't you going to plead for your life? Aren't you going to ask me not to kill you?
And yet, even as he slams her backwards against the mattress, the white-haired girl remains calm. He screams at her that she must have noticed how beastly he was and tells her to beg for her life. But the white-haired girl says something odd.
If you say that you are ugly, then I must be equally ugly.
He continues ranting, asking if she can't see how terrifying he is. But all she says is that to her, he appears to be a person. He talks and thinks and responds just like a person. He freaks out, he loses his shit, but she calls him the fuck out. She tells him that they are just alike, that he has suffered, and he's trembling. He asks why she's so calm, and she suddenly says that she would like to stay in this mansion.
I find it very hard to believe that what you want deep down is to hurt people, and I get the feeling that I am meant to be here, that it is my role.
This kind of destroys him a little. He drops the sword, and the white-haired girl raises a hand to trace the outline of his face. A tear falls down his cheek. She asks if he's crying. Can't she see that he clearly is? But that's when both we and Bestia realize something about this girl. She's blind. Which explains all her strange behavior, why she refused to dress, why she's not scared of Bestia. She can't see him.
That is correct. I am blind. But whoever decided that reality is only that which can be seen? I know not what appearance I have. In the darkness, everything is as one. If you are a beast, then I too must be a beast.
I am grateful that you cannot see.
Just as she requested, the white-haired girl begins to reside in the mansion, and this just goes to prove that all a boy needs is a good woman to set him straight. Bestia stops killing people, he actually becomes quite a gentleman. He still can't quite believe that the white-haired girl is not afraid of him, but I guess this is the ideal situation. The mansion technically did grant his wish, one of them, at least, the side of Bestia that longs for peace. This will become Bestia's central dilemma throughout this door. Does he crave violence or peace? Is he a man or a monster? It's an interesting conflict and idea, to be sure. Unfortunately, as we'll soon see, I think Bestia does a little too much waffling for this concept to be effective. Regardless, the white-haired girl proves to be a very calming presence for him. They have several conversations, mostly about the white-haired girl's lack of sight. In one, she expresses that sometimes she can see what she describes as light, though it seems it's more some sort of visualization of people's emotions. She's also not useless. Even without her sight, she still manages to help him in the kitchen. She needs to, because it seems that once again the maid has disappeared somewhere. Odd. She claims that she was hiding to give them some space. Bestia and the white-haired girl grow so close that eventually they sleep in the same bed, though the maid makes it clear that their relationship is not a sexual one. They act more like family than lovers. One night, while they lay in bed, he asks her about her past. I'm going to breeze through this really quick, so bear with me. For as long as she can remember, the white-haired girl has lived alone with her mother. They were very poor, and her mother apparently worked as a maid for a nearby house, though it is implied that she may have actually been whoring herself out instead. Unfortunately, her mother dies one of these times that she's away, and the white-haired girl is sent the rest of the money she had earned. Instead of simply surviving on that, however, the white-haired girl laments how she could never see the beautiful world her mother wanted to show her, and so goes to see a physician who might be able to cure her blindness. She traveled all the way to this country, implied by the main fruit around here being oranges and the more Mediterranean climate to be maybe Spain or Portugal, but the doctor told her that he could not fix her. On her way home, bandits attacked her and robbed her of all of her money.
I lost everything my mother saved for me. The money she gave her life to earn for me. I failed to repay her for anything she did.
She wandered, and eventually stumbled upon the mansion. In the end, she claims that she is happy things worked out the way they did. Bestia ponders how terrified he is. He's growing used to the white-haired girl, and in some ways, he's afraid of her. But he's also afraid of losing her. This means that he must be more than a beast, right?
Take this. It makes a good gift, supposedly. I was planning to throw it out when I learned that, but I couldn't. I felt like I was meant to give it to someone.
It is, of course, the white rose accessory. It fits her perfectly, almost as if it was made for her. Later on, Bestia's nighttime is tormented by something. A voice of some sort.
Do you not desire more prey? But you were so hungry for blood before, so hard to please. You obtained peace, caused it aside, and then to pick it up once more. But you'll never be able to escape it completely. After all, you are enchanted by the pleasure magic brings. You have been for a very, very long time.
This time he promises to the voice that he will not kill again. He is happy with the white-haired girl. But just when he's saying this, a knock comes from the door and it seemingly opens by itself. Bestia says he'll just chase them off, but still, he brings his sword. Maybe it was a smart idea, because what he sees...
Why? Why?
...is another beast. He runs, but the thing chases him. He calls it Bestia, and the maid has a revelation. The word Bestia is not a name, but of course a word that means beast. Specifically, it's Latin, but that's neither here nor there. Clearly, he took that name on knowing exactly what it meant, since he also puts the word to another thing that looks just like him. The white-haired girl hears a commotion, but Bestia forces her back into her room, telling her to not come out for any reason. Bestia turns back to the beast, and for the first time, he's enacting violence to defend something, not just for the sake of it. Still, this thing terrifies him, and it's getting closer.
If I don't kill it, it will kill me. I have to kill it. 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 Kill, 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 kill!
And so he does. He stabs the thing again and again and again, eventually slows, thinking he killed it, until it makes a feeble noise. It starts crawling towards him, reaching for him.
Run in hell!
And he stabs it one more time. For the moment, let's leave Bestia on this high, almost triumphant note, despite his shaking. Because you see, we've only been seeing one side of this story up until now. We really haven't gotten the hypothetical knife driven into us about the consequences of Bestia's actions. So, to that end, let's get back to Pauline. She is currently remembering the last moment she shared with her merchant boyfriend. The story won't tell us his name for a little while longer, but I'll make it easier on you and just tell you. His name is Yukimasa. That sounds a little different from the very European names we've gotten so far. Well, he is an international merchant.
Don't worry about me. I'll be waiting. I promise. I managed to wait 1.5 years already, so I can handle this. Come back, okay?
You have my word.
I refuse to believe that he could be dead. I have to find proof that somewhere out there he's still alive and well. I have to find him. I have to prove it.
I'm just gonna say this right now. Up until this point, we've been experiencing the dark, twisted inner workings of Bestia's mind. He is the jongleur, etc. It's all been a little bit overdramatic, even, dare I say, a touch juvenile in its writing. Oh yes, a man torn by his conflicting desires to just live a peaceful life, but tortured by his desire to kill. Yeah, I had a character just like that when I was 15. But it's not all that bad. Even if this door reads a bit silly at times, we are not allowed to forget that despite some minor missteps, Hanada really knows what he's doing. Because now we get to breathe, we get out of the claustrophobic mansion and follow Pauline, the most wonderful little ray of sunshine there is. Her world is obviously going to come crashing down when she realizes that Yukimasa really is dead, but for now, I'm just happy to get some fresh air. Pauline has arrived in the town near the mansion. This is the last place that Yukimasa was supposed to make port, and so she is here to see if she can't find him. A friend of the family has taken her here, and he has a friend that she'll also be staying with, so she can focus on her investigation. But he makes her promise that if she can't find him in a month, she'll come home with him. Reluctantly, she agrees. Pauline comments how melancholic this place is. They just got their asses beat in a war, after all. Still, it's quite lovely, so she decides to take a look around before settling in. She wanders out to the beach, where she happens to spot a peculiar young man.
Good afternoon. What are you doing out here all alone, little man?
He is confused. She accidentally just spoke in her native tongue. She corrects, introducing herself properly, but still, the boy remains silent.
My name is Pauline. What is your name, little man?
Dreadful. That's one hell of an accent you've got. Who are you? A bandit? What are you here for?
No, I'm not a damn bit. I promise.
The young man continues to make fun of her as she stumbles over her words. racist. But also, Pauline is the most adorable girl I've ever seen, holy shit. Anyway, the kid continues to call her names and tell her she sucks, using vulgar language the whole time, in between which he asks what she's doing here. She asks him if she's seen any foreigners around recently, and he gives a non-committal response. Oh boy. So she asks him what he's doing out here on the beach, and again, no dice. Pauline thinks that he probably doesn't have any friends.
Say, if you don't mind, could we be friends? I'm not really familiar with the area, so it'd be nice to have someone with me.
I don't need any damn friends. And who the hell'd be dumb enough to say, sure, I'll be your friend, to someone they just met? How about you quit being so damn nosy, lady? It just so happens I like being alone.
The kid takes off, and this is not a great start for Pauline.
Master? Master? Ah, you've returned to me. You suddenly started staring off into the distance.
We return to the Maid. Important to note that throughout Pauline's sections, the Maid does not narrate. Rather, Pauline herself does. And we are able to see it, but the Maid isn't. Before you start making theories about this, don't. It has no story relevance. It is simply used to explain how we can see Pauline's side of things while leaving the mansion. Again, this chapter has some weird choices. We are back in the aftermath of Bestia's newest slaughter. The white-haired girl emerges, and he kind of freaks out at her before she calms him down. It is then that he confesses to her what he is.
Before you arrived, I murdered dozens of humans. I didn't want you to know that I was such a sinful creature, leaving a long trail of bodies in my wake. But I thought that if I didn't show them my strength, if I didn't force them into submission, then I would never find peace.
An interesting hypothesis. Is Bestia simply defending himself, or is this just a reason to excuse his behavior? Only time will tell. The white-haired girl asks him to tell her about himself, and he explains that the first thing he remembers is waking up cold and hungry and surrounded by people.
I sought help from the people around me, but my words did not get through to them. The only thing that came from my mouth were feral howls.
The villagers seemed disgusted with him, and the disgust quickly turned to fear. They called him Bestia and attempted to chase him out, but it quickly turned to violence. He asked nothing of them but assistance, and they beat him instead. He realized then what the word Bestia means.
I was neither cattle, nor swine, nor fowl of the air, but a vicious beast, the kind of creature that ravaged their fields.
And so, his fear turned to anger. If he was a beast, he would act like one. He laments how close he was to forgetting it all with her, and the white-haired girl insists that he is a man.
I cannot see you, that is correct, but I can feel you, sense you, hear you, and I can learn what you bear within your heart. You worry, you fear, and you think, and you show concern for me. These things all prove that you are human.
This woman, she really is going to change me.
Oh, bro, she can totally fix you. Believe it, she's the manic pixie dream girl you've been waiting for. This is the one, dude, I promise. The white-haired girl once again reiterates that they are alike.
As the people outside this mansion called you a beast, so too do the people outside call me a witch. See? We are alike. Do I look like a witch to you?
And with that, let's once again slide back over to Pauline. From here on out, we're going to be schmoving through both different perspectives and different times quite rapidly, so bear with me, we're gonna go a little fast.
He came from a faraway land, across many seas. There was never any guarantee that we would see each other again, but I still believed that no matter how great the ocean that divided us, we were bound by our love.
We're going to bring this up extensively in the next video, but speaking from experience myself, I get the distinct vibe that Hanada has been in a very real long-distance relationship before, because goddamn that shit hurts and he really gets it. We get another flashback of Yukimasa returning from one of his voyages and he and Pauline meeting.
Every day, I picture your face, recall the sound of your voice. But over time, I began to lose surety. It absolutely terrified me. Is that what you actually looked like? Is this truly the sound of your voice?
See? Meanwhile, in the present, Pauline has been in the village for a week, and still no trace of him. The peasantry is of little help. They are all very closed off after the war and don't really want to talk to her, so she's hitting a wall. Frustrated, she goes back out to the beach and runs into that rude boy again.
God have mercy, you again? What are you doing here?
They bicker for a little bit, but the boy actually expresses a little concern about the results of her search, considering that the town is the way it is right now, but he's very irritating about it.
Lady, you're—
My name isn't Lady, it's Pauline. Pauline.
Lady is—
Pauline.
The boy asks if this guy is really alive, and Pauline insists that he is. They never showed her a body after all. The boy gives her an orange, tells her that he just wants to get rid of her, but finally gives us his name.
Javi. My name. It's not little man, it's Javi.
Pauline once again desires to be friends with him, but he insists that she just wants to use him. But not our dear precious Pauline. There is not an impure thought in her head. Normally I'd be using this language to make fun of characters like this, but I genuinely like Pauline. Her sunshine is infectious. She vows that she will make Javi her friend as he flees the scene.
I had actually at first been thinking that it would be easier to get information if I could make friends with someone in the village. But that orange Javi gave me when I was sad and lonely and hurting was amazingly fresh and delicious, more than any orange I've ever had before.
More time passes, but still no progress for Pauline. The only place that calms her is the ocean, and usually she finds Javi there, but not on this particular day. Until, that is, she falls into a small pit trap that he set up for her. He calls her annoying and tells her to stay away from the beach, but she starts crying. He freaks out about it a little, but it turns out she punked him right back. I love her goddamn spunk. Turns out, however, that she did twist her ankle, and so begrudgingly, Javi helps her out of the hole and binds it up for her.
It was my fault anyway. Swap it out for a real bandage when you can. I'm sure your acquaintance has some.
They both stare out at the ocean, and Pauline suddenly has an idea. She wants to take a rowboat out on the water with him. And after much grumbling, they do, and reveal the most goddamn beautiful CG in this entire game. You know, sometimes in visual novels, the CGs can be a bit hit or miss, especially if multiple artists are handling them, like was the case in Steins Gate. But here in Fata Morgana, with such a small team, each one of the CGs looks so good and cohesive, and there's so fucking many of them, holy shit! But this one is one of my favorites, mostly just because it's so different than most of the rest. It's so peaceful. While they're on the boat, Pauline tells Javi about Yukimasa and suggests that he come to visit her hometown sometime, or, you know, if he needs a new start, her friend could just, bring her back with them. This was a time before you needed a 6-figure job to get out of your life and could just go wherever. Javi admits that both of his parents are dead and his life is a bit shit at the moment, and Pauline assumes it was in the war, but no, that's not where Javi's parents died.
It was the beast. He showed up one day and destroyed everything.
He reveals the villagers aren't like that because of the war. It's because of the rampaging beast terrifying and killing them. Pauline has a horrifying thought. What if Yukimasa did survive his shipwreck, but he didn't make it very far? What if he ran into the beast? And speaking of the bastard, what's he currently up to? Having yet another Vietnam War flashback. He's dreaming about the past, about his mad dash through the village, picking up his sword and slaughtering many. As it turns out, 2 of those victims were, of course, Javi's parents. And Bestia remembers Javi.
Bestia! Bestia! Why would you?
He lurches awake, begging for water. The white-haired girl asks what's wrong, but he pushes her away. Then he hears a voice, one that he identifies as the Maid. He demands she show herself.
And if I did, what would you do then? Kill me? You thirst for blood, to instill fear to live. In the face of your fire, others' lives so meaningless. That's the kind of man you are. Or do you intend to pretend that you never did anything for sport? Yes. Yes, indeed. You kill for your own sake. You kill a child's mother and father as he stands there watching.
The white-haired girl tries to calm him down, but the voice laughs at him, calling him pathetic, that this woman is the only thing keeping him sane.
This little facade will be over soon enough. It will end at that woman's hand. Because that's what she's here for. To crush your soul into tiny pieces.
Okay. Ominous. And back to Pauline. She's currently remembering the time that she and Yukimasa first met. He was apparently a protege of her father, and she first meets him on one of the rare times he's actually home. Clearly trying to set them up, Pauline's father asks her to show Yukimasa around the town, and she reluctantly agrees. We also learn that Pauline's father is Japanese, so even though she is living somewhere in Europe, if I had to guess by the name and the fact that her father is a sea trader, I'd say maybe the Netherlands or Belgium, Pauline is half Japanese but does not speak the language. At first, she and Yukimasa's voyage around the city doesn't go super well. It's really awkward and weird, but gradually they warm up to each other, particularly by talking about the ocean, especially when he confesses that he was actually the one who picked out this dress that her father gave to her. Yep, she's totally done so. In the present, still no luck. But by inquiring about the beast, she has learned a couple of things. Shortly before she arrived, a beast appeared and started killing people. He fled up into the hills, but people are still disappearing, and it's being attributed to this beast. Javi finally confirms this, but he refuses to tell her where the beast's lair is.
I heard from the other villagers that you once chased the beast. You chased after it and found its den. And then you came back. That's what I heard.
She accuses him of hiding this from her, of watching her flounder all this time while keeping everything he knew from her.
Shut the hell up! Like I could actually tell you that! What'd the village tell you about me? That the kid couldn't even take revenge for his parents? That he's a damn coward?
He confesses that it's all true. The night his parents were killed, he chased the beast down, searching for revenge.
I couldn't do it! Not only could I not stand up to it, as soon as it turned around and I saw its eyes, its bloodshot eyes and black irises, I couldn't move.
So here we get to the root of Javi. The other villagers think he's a coward and so stay away from him, and he does too. Pauline tries to tell him that this doesn't make him a coward. He's just a kid after all, and no one else volunteered to go with him. But self-loathing is as self-loathing does. And that brings us back to Pauline.
You think that was just me being mean? That I didn't tell you where the beast dwells? I've seen the beast. I know how scary it is, and I know how dangerous it is. I know good and well what you're thinking, that the guy you're looking for might have been taken by him.
Javi, as it turns out, in his own tsundere sort of way, really does care about her. He doesn't want her to get killed.
I want to know for sure whether he's alive or dead. Somewhere in a little corner of my heart, part of me just thinks that he might just actually be dead. I have to have faith, but I'm so close to cracking, to thinking he won't ever come back to me without knowing for sure. I can't let go.
Her sadness is starting to crack him as well. She wants to follow up any lead she has, any possibility of knowing the truth. He agrees to take her to the den on one condition. If she doesn't find any trace of him, she'll simply have to accept that he's dead. She agrees, but of course, we know that that won't be the case. Javi has a few conditions. He's going to go with her, obviously. When they get there, she is not to enter the beast's den, just simply look. And finally, when they make it back, he would like to go home with her. We return to the mansion, the beast's den, if you will, and things are not looking good for old Bestia. He is in the process of breaking every reflective surface in the house. The white-haired girl finds him in this state and tries to calm him down. It doesn't really work.
I thought it was all over when I protected you from the beast, but that image keeps coming back to me. The sight of another beast clinging onto me. I can hear its voice. It says I was only ever a beast.
Clearly, he has been hearing this disembodied voice more often. Clearly, it is driving him mad. Well, more mad than he already was, anyway.
Do not trust the voice. Trust me instead. I do not want to make another mistake. To do something like run away. Because I am so weak-willed. Are words not enough to convince you that you are not a beast? Then see for yourself. Feel for yourself that there is but one difference between us.
She disrobes and lets him feel her body. It is, of course, incomparably beautiful, and the sight of it makes him cry. Damn titties do just fix everything, don't they? He asks her to smile for him, and she does, though she's unsure of whether she's doing it well.
Your smile is so pretty. It calms me, warms my heart. I think I know someone, somewhere, who has that same smile.
Once again, we are back to a Pauline flashback. She's now remembering the day Yukimasa left after meeting him for the first time. It's a slightly awkward farewell. He thanks her for showing him around, but with a little prompting, he says what's been on his mind. He stumbles through some stuff about his homeland, probably not wanting him back, how he's got no stability and no future, and Pauline knows what he wants to say.
You're right. There's nothing but obstacles. But I've fallen for you. The way you look staring out at the sea, the shape of your lips when you smile at me, the kindness in your voice. The more time I spend with you, the deeper I fall in love with you.
Well, damn. You beat me to it. I'll say it myself too. I love you, Pauline.
And this is what she's remembering as she and Javi approach the beast den. As they go, they bicker for a while about names again, and Pauline finally agrees that Javi can call her Polly. But finally, they approach.
There's a mansion up ahead, standing atop a cliff. I can't say why exactly, but I feel like it's something that shouldn't be there. It feels out of place in this area, like it's somehow ethereal and could disappear at any moment.
Pauline feels a little weird, too. She's nervous, but she feels like this place is almost familiar somehow, even though she's never been to this country. Finally, the mansion comes into view. Javi and Pauline hide in the bushes. She asks him if the people haven't just considered leaving this area, but of course, you need money for that. We're not all like Pauline, after all. Ugh, don't I know it. They continue their approach, both now falling silent. Pauline presses her back against a wall and steels herself to take a glance through a window. She finally does, and she sees something moving in there. After a minute of waiting, a shadow moves across their vision.
No.
Polly?
But she takes off like a rocket, breaking her promise to Javi. She bangs ferociously on the door, and Javi asks her what the hell she's doing. She's going to alert the beast.
It's not a beast. A beast isn't living in this mansion. Open the door. Open the...
Almost as if by will, it does.
I knew it. I was right. You're alive. You're alive. You're alive. I never stopped believing. I knew you wouldn't die. I had faith you were still alive, and I was right. All this time, I've never stopped thinking about you. I've never stopped imagining our reunion. Yukimasa, I'm so glad you're alive.
Stop it, Polly! Get away from him! That's...
So... Yep. You know how we thought this entire time that Pauline's bow was the first merchant that Bestia killed? Well, you see, that isn't quite the case. The Maid, and by extension the story, might have lied. We get that brief second glimpse of the merchant with Yukimasa's sprite, but if you'll notice, in the CG where Bestia is killing him, he looks completely different. The story so far has again been fucking with us in a different way. Bestia, or I guess I can just call him Yukimasa now, huh? Sees Pauline, panics, and begins muttering something in his native tongue. Remember, Pauline still can't really understand Japanese. He runs and Pauline chases after him, Javi screaming for her to wait. Pauline finally realizes something is very wrong when he points his katana at her.
You're scaring me. What's gotten into you?
Bakemono ga kurose!
Yukimasa, do you know who I am?
Bakemono da yo!
Yukimasa screams and cuts her with his sword. Pauline is stunned, and then he continues.
So hot. Why? Yukimasa, it's me. It's Pauline. Open your eyes.
He raises his sword above his head, and Pauline realizes the truth. That he is the beast. And he is going to kill her.
Yuki, it's me. It's Pauline. Let's go back to my town. I never got the chance to ask if you wanted to move to my country. Then we wouldn't have to wait so long to see each other. What do you think, Yukimasa?
Burn in hell!
From very far away, Pauline hears a woman's voice. The white-haired girl. She tells him in her mind that if he found someone else, she wouldn't be angry. Oh my god, what a little fucking angel, even when she's dying.
It hurts. I can't take it. Just once. Could you turn back and say my name? We were lovers, weren't we? So why? You said you wanted a peaceful life. I can't take this. It hurts so bad. Yukimasa.
So, that line that Bestia just said may sound familiar. And this moment may also sound familiar. That is because this is the moment that Bestia killed the other beast. The other person that he saw as a beast because she shared his Japanese heritage was Pauline. Yeah, that's right. The entire twist of this chapter is fucking racism. Holy shit. This, may start to click some things into place for you. The reason the villagers were scared of him was because he was a foreigner who was just in a shipwreck. He must have looked super strange to them. Things escalated from there. They started calling him a beast and being fearful of him. One question remains, though. If the only reason that they called Yukimasa a beast was because he was Asian, then why did he suddenly attack them? Out of fear, maybe, but something doesn't quite make sense. Javi is obviously freaking out, but at the moment, he doesn't do anything. He just runs. Now, if I had been writing this story, I would have done a little explanation here about Yukimasa and who he really is for the slow people in the room, but I would have kind of made this the end, the big twist right at the climax, and fucking wrap this shit up in a little bow. But that is not what Hanada does. We still have a quarter of the chapter to go. I'm gonna breeze through it really quick because most of what happens after could have been explained in like a couple of paragraphs, and this extended ending is kind of one of my big gripes with it, but let's see what's next, I suppose.
What? I lied to you? I have not told you a single falsehood, master. Bestia was convinced he was a beast, and as a servant of this house, it is my responsibility to present my former master to you as he saw himself.
Okay. Sure thing, Maid. Jesus Christ. The Maid laments you being able to see Pauline's side of the story, as this tale would be a lot easier to swallow had you not. She also explains the Asian thing that I just did, again, in case you didn't get it. And now we're returning to the last canonical moment we saw of Yukimasa and the white-haired girl, right after he cried from seeing her tits. He doesn't really do anything with this, and she puts her clothes back on. He seems to have calmed down and might actually be thinking that she's right, that he might be just a guy. And then the white-haired girl comes at us with a speculation, one that I, again, just outlined above. How she guessed all of this is beyond me, and I think Hanada just couldn't find a super good reason for us to be informed of all of this. Unfortunately, as he realizes that he's just a foreigner, this causes Yukimasa to come to the correct conclusion that the other beast was not a beast either.
No, they did call me a beast. Tell me I'm a beast, please. Let me remain a beast.
He's trying to reject reality. He doesn't want to be a man. He doesn't want to admit he killed someone he loved. However, there's something in this mansion that won't let him forget.
Someday, you shall remember. You shall remember everything. I will not allow you to avert your eyes. Remember that you have always been a beast. Remember and suffer.
And it is so. Yukimasa remembers. He remembers being on a ship with Pauline's father. They are not being allowed back into Japan, as during this time Japan was in an extreme stance of isolationism. Apparently, Yukimasa has never actually been to Japan. His family have been living overseas for 3 generations, but he still feels a great connection to it, and it's obviously upsetting that they won't be allowed to actually set foot on the island. But there's another problem here. Apparently one of their crew and a government official conspired to offload a bunch of Spanish coins worth more in trade than in currency. The official already committed seppuku, but Pauline's father is responsible for meting punishment out to his crew member. Yukimasa suggests that the crew member also commit ritual suicide. Of course, this is pretty ridiculous, as he's obviously a European man and has no idea the customs of the Japanese, but Yukimasa tells the captain that he'll make sure it happens. Not really liking this very much. Unfortunately, as the execution essentially begins, the sailor, my boy Seedorf, insists that he was set up. The captain hesitates, but Yukimasa insists he's just lying to save his skin and commits the execution for him anyway. The captain seems a little unnerved because he thought he saw something just then. He thought he saw Yukimasa smiling.
You must have been seeing things.
In the present, Yukimasa is wandering the manor, panicking at seeing all these sudden memories and calling for either the white-haired girl or Pauline. It's impossible to determine which. Back on the ship, Yukimasa finds a silver coin. Instead of reporting it, he sticks it in his pocket. And just a few days later, it's found in another sailor's luggage. Both the captain and Yukimasa deeply regret having killed Seedorf seemingly for nothing, and Yukimasa vows to punish the man who's really responsible and to get any information about any other smugglers out of him. Said sailor wakes up tied to a chair. Yukimasa confronts him with the coin found in his luggage, but it seems he doesn't know anything. Yukimasa insists that he's lying and is one of the people behind it, and he's going to do anything he can to get that information out of him.
Quite the thick fingers you have, but it's all meat. Your bones are any thicker than anyone else's.
The sailor screams.
Oh, don't start screaming just yet. That was just the first, your little finger. Next is your ring finger.
Unfortunately, the scene goes on way past the feeling of how fucked up it is. We have to watch this man systematically go through every one of this poor guy's fingers. Finally, the look on his face seems to beg to Yukimasa why he's doing this.
That is a good question. I'm not even sure myself.
Eventually, he accidentally kills the man and tosses his body overboard. And it is in that moment that he realizes something about himself.
As I watch the sack of flesh sink into the depths, I'm thoroughly shocked to realize I don't feel the slightest bit bad about what I have done. No regret, no remorse, nothing. There's an itch. I felt deep within my chest ever since the moment my blade sunk its teeth into Seedorf's neck.
Still, at the same time, he's aware enough to understand that if he continues down this path, he's going to lose everything he's built over his life. He grasps for something to steady him. We are truly seeing the conflict between Yukimasa's desires for blood and peace manifest. And so we get a brief scene of Yukimasa coming back to Pauline and acting like nothing is wrong at all. Horrifying. In the present, Yukimasa's freaking the fuck out. He wanders into a room in the mansion he's never been to before, one with a big stained glass window of an angel.
The angel's... it's looking at me, and laughing.
Of course, he smashes the damn thing. The noise draws the white-haired girl. He tries to insist that he's not a human, but this time the white-haired girl uses a different tact. She simply tells him that he is himself.
But no matter what happens, you will always be you. Don't be afraid.
But Yukimasa is not sure those are the words he wanted to hear. Over the next while, Yukimasa struggles with himself. The white-haired girl tries her best to be there for him, but one day she falls ill. Of course, there's no medicine in the mansion, so Yukimasa does something he never thought he'd do. He goes down to the village.
Bestia's mind was made up. He would don the skin of a human for her. To protect the peace he had, he would return to the place that had left him with painful memories.
And so he does, and it actually goes pretty well. People look at him with curiosity, but do not call him a beast. He talks to a shopkeeper while buying some oranges for the white-haired girl, and the man apologizes that they're not as good, what with all the chaos about the war and then the beast. Luckily, he says, that's all going to end today. Yep, the men of the village are finally banding together to go and slay the beast, and do you know who organized them? A little kid! The only kid who knows where the den is. Yukimasa dashes back to the mansion. Obviously, the only one there right now is the white-haired girl.
Please make it in time. I need her. I need the peace she provides me.
He makes it back and rushes through the house, calling her name, but she's nowhere. Until finally, he runs into something he knows all too well. A pool of blood.
Like a genuine beast, he followed the trail of slippery fluid on all fours. The man crawled and crawled and crawled, until at last he reached the stairs leading down to the cellar.
There are men down here, and Yukimasa rushes in with a righteous fury. But he's far too late. They've already killed the white-haired girl. Some of the men, upon seeing him, question if he's really the beast, but Javi is there to confirm it.
He's gotten himself dressed up all proper and fancy. But good clothes don't make him a good man. Isn't that right, you beastie? No! You murderer!
Why? Why did you kill her?
Why? You want to know why? Her death was an accident, I'd say. I feel bad about what happened. But any woman who would live with a man like you must be a witch.
This hurts him, just like Javi was torn apart by the deaths of his parents and the death of Pauline.
Pauline was desperately trying to find you! Why? Why would you kill someone so devoted to you? Do you understand what you've done? I'm asking you a question, you goddamn murderer!
And now, I have nothing left.
All of the emotion leaves his face. The transition is immediate and horrifying, how quickly he drops the mask. He pulls the sword from the white-haired girl's body and laughs. Javi asks how he can do this. Didn't he care for the white-haired girl?
How? How indeed. I don't know either. But you know what? It doesn't matter anymore. As every last one of my anchors has broken off and sunken into the sea.
Quite obviously. He slaughters them all.
What was it that afflicted you with such madness? Losing your memory in the shipwreck? The abuse and insult you suffered at the village's hands? No, none of those were the root. You were always like this. That is your essence, the real you hidden beneath the mask of sincerity.
He used both Pauline and the white-haired girl to attempt to anchor himself. He never really loved either of them. He loved the idea of what they represented. A normal life. Peace.
What a tragic man. What a hopeless man you are.
And once again, with the maid's words of condemnation, we exit the second door. I analyzed this chapter a lot less in the middle than I did with the first one, mostly because I really wanted you as the audience to experience it before I put my thoughts into your heads, because on a first read, this one is still very decent. I think it's only when you reread it with more context, and having read the rest of the story, that a lot of the questionable decisions really show. First, of course, there are some good things. I really like the twist that even after having been presented with several reasons why Yukimasa might have become the beast, his shipwreck, the abuse of the villagers, the ultimate answer is that he always was. Losing his memory merely acted as a catalyst to drop all the pretense. I think that's a much more interesting angle than a tragic backstory where society made him like this. And I think the battle that he has within himself of being a man or being a monster is a compelling conflict for a character. It also lends the sentiment some universality. This same conflict could happen in any setting and still be entirely plausible. The atmosphere of this chapter is also some of the best in the game. Never do you feel so horrified and claustrophobic as you do in the mansion of this chapter. The music becomes a lot less put together. It's a lot of clattering and clanging and just noises, and the backgrounds, instead of being painted over backgrounds of rooms, become mere impressions of those things. But then, of course, when we get to Pauline's scenes, all of that changes. The music becomes calm. We get a lot of bright colors in the backgrounds, and they become a little more solid again. Pauline brings calm to the world. And to us, just like she did for Yukimasa. Another really great moment of bringing us into the emotional space of the characters. However, I feel like this chapter is really let down by a few elements. Firstly, some of its dialogue seems a lot more amateurish than the rest of the story. I kind of tried to dance around it a bit in the voice lines, but if you've been watching the screen, you've probably seen quite a few borderline cringy dialogues, especially from Yukimasa himself. It reads very my first angsty bad boy character at times. If I had to guess, I'd say this is on purpose to really drive home how vile and violent he is, and this chapter in general really revels in gore. Now, y'all know me. I am certainly not averse to gore whatsoever, but I think this chapter really goes a bit too far with it, to the point of near comedy. I have stopped believing in the horror, which is exactly what this chapter doesn't want. More pressingly is the twist. It feels like this chapter felt a lot of pressure to follow up chapter 1, which had this really expertly crafted twist, filled with misdirection and genuinely shocking and ironic revelations. Now, obviously, a precedent has been set, and now the audience is expecting another twist just as insane as the last. And this chapter makes an earnest effort. It doesn't fail completely by any means. However, if you really think about it, the ultimate twist of this chapter is simply racism. And that's, if anything, more funny than horrifying. Don't get me wrong, I buy into it for sure. I also live in our modern day society, but just thinking about it, it's just a little sillier than I think Hanada intended. It's also a little less strikingly believable. It's harder to imagine a whole crowd with such terrible motivations than it is to imagine one noble kicking a painter out for fucking his wife. Like, not one of these villagers tried to help this guy, who, while a wreck and a foreigner, is still clearly just a guy in pain. I feel like this chapter was sacrificed on the altar of making the rest of the story hella insanely good. You're not really gonna know what that means yet. This chapter does set up a lot of things that I can't really talk about yet, which makes my opinion ultimately not slide off of it too much. But again, I know some things that you might not. So with all that being said, let's return back to the mansion, our hand gripped firmly by the maids.
That was quite horrific, wasn't it? Are you feeling unwell, Master? Oh my. You're shaking, Master. Fear not. I assure you, the beast will not come through that door.
We asked the maid what became of Yukimasa after this. It seems that he lost the rest of his humanity that day and descended upon the village. So, that's not good. What's also not good is that we still don't have any memories ourselves. So, on to the next door it is. Once again, we pass by that mirror from earlier, and, once again, neither of you appear in it. However, as you're passing by, you can swear you hear a voice coming from it. And here we are offered our first real choice in the game. Do we extend our hand towards the mirror or avert our gaze? Well, considering that if we don't investigate everything in the mansion when presented the opportunity, we get locked into a bad ending, let's definitely try to touch that mirror. Our fingers, it seems, sink into the mirror, and we ourselves follow after it. We find ourselves in a forest, outside a dark mansion. Someone named Giselle is here looking for it, it seems. She, presumably, finds the door unlocked and enters. Inside, all of the windows are boarded up. The place looks abandoned. Giselle decides to continue looking around and stumbles upon something we ourselves just saw. A room with a stained glass window of an angel.
Please do not touch the drapes. Or the windows.
Whoa. Who the hell is this? Apparently, this is his mansion, and Giselle is trespassing in it. He offers to let her take and sell some of the furniture if she desires, but instead she begs to be allowed to stay. And yes, she is aware of the rumors that a witch lives here.
Not merely a witch. If you remain here, you too shall likely suffer your own destruction. The witch is real. Very much so. It is not a legend, nor a fairy tale. The witch.
The witch's name was Morgana.
Is me.
And we are sucked back out of the mirror. We were so close to remembering something. The maid tells us that we look like we've seen a ghost. She asks if we want to rest before we continue, but nah, let's keep going.
You do not wish to remain here? Still not fond of mirrors?
She leads us onwards, this time up to the second floor of the mansion. On our way, we ask her more about the mansion. When was it built, for instance?
I have been a servant of this house for many, many years, but the truth is, I do not know everything about it. All I know is that the mansion is cursed, and that it has brought misfortune upon its residents, since times of old.
On our way to the next door, we pass by a very peculiar painting, but the maid pushes us onward. We're almost there. We stop in front of a door, on the other side of which is lively conversation.
What lies beyond this door is neither a period of elegance and abundance like the first, nor of ruin and savagery like the second. Technology and culture had become quite developed. Cameras and photography had been invented. The tale I am about to tell you is one of a man who wagered everything on his ambitions.
We open the door, and beyond, the first thing we see is a room covered in cigar smoke, with several men crowded around a billiards table. Ah, the sheer aesthetic of it all.
The smoke was so thick you could hardly see more than a few feet ahead of you. I could compare it to a dense morning fog, but that might give the impression of beauty, and there was little of that to be found in this room. Do you see the silhouettes of several men in the smoky room? The one in the middle, the one looking in your direction, master, was the present master of the house. His name was Jacopo. I am a faithful servant of this house, and I would not for the life of me dare speak ill of my master. I was not terribly fond of my master back then.
According to the maid, Jacopo is a hardened businessman who only puts his trust in capital and rank. Of course, it makes sense. We're firmly in the Industrial Revolution now. The room we're in is nearly a gentleman's club. There's cigars and booze everywhere, and of course in the middle is that big billiards table.
His wealthy, high-ranking acquaintances had a variety of hair colors, from polished brass to the brown of baby robins to the color of sunburnt wheat. There was also much greater variety in skin tone compared to the visitors and residents of previous eras, but that was hardly any surprise, for the mansion sat upon land inhabited by immigrants. The New World.
Okay, so if we maybe had suspicions that the mansion was changing locations last chapter, this confirms it. We were, no doubt, 100% in Europe the last two chapters, and now we have direct confirmation that this chapter takes place in America. It's made clear by the way the men are conversing that they're all investors in various industries. The type of person that would eventually evolve into the dreaded shareholder. We learn that Jacopo's big project right now is investing into the Transcontinental Railroad. Fucker's a railroad baron, no wonder he's so loaded, holy shit. His friends comment that there's been some rumors of workers for Jacopo's chosen company dying on the job.
My goodness. And here I thought you all had spines. You think we're gonna run out of workers just because a few ate it? There's so many, we don't even know what to do with them all. There's not a chance that well will dry up. And if, by some chance, it does, all we have to do is scoop up a shipful of blacks or yellows.
So yeah, I don't think this man is very nice. In fact, I think capitalism in general is a mistake. According to the maid, as cold as his techniques are, his investments in both the railroad and oil refineries have certainly brought a bustle back to the mansion as never there was before.
However, I was not terribly fond of the hustle and bustle personally, but please don't get me wrong. I am hardly opposed to the mansion being cheerful. It was just, how should I put it? The splendor of the time seemed superficial, heartless. It was as though everyone was being rushed along by some unknown, invisible force. Part of it was, I expect, caused by the growing divide between those standing at the top and sitting on the bottom. Or perhaps the mansion was simply taking after its master.
Bitch just called this man's heartless, holy shit! But just then, a quiet knock comes from the door, interrupting the conversation.
Pardon me, I have made some tea. May I offer anyone a cup?
That was quick. Yep, in this time the white-haired girl is already here, and enchanting as always. I love that fucking outfit.
Tea? I don't recall asking for that. When were you asked to make it?
I wasn't, but I had these leaves with the most wonderful aroma, and I thought you might enjoy.
Shut your trap and know your place. What do you think we have all these maids for?
Even his asshole investor friends are a little shocked at his behavior, as apparently the white-haired girl is his wife. What a bastard. He drags her out into the hall and yells at her a little, appearing entirely irrational about this whole thing. The white-haired girl herself seems a little confused and apologizes profusely about the tea.
Like I've told you, that's not your job. Don't show yourself in front of the other men. I have nothing else to say to you.
He tells her to leave, but she hesitates, asking him when they will next spend time together. It seems it's been a while, but Jacopo simply tells her to go back to her room again. The maid immediately condemns his behavior, commenting that she is simply devoted to Jacopo and he treats her like crap, but all she can do is head back to her room. As she goes, a maid accidentally trips her. God, she just can't get a break, can she? Because Jacopo has been treating her cruelly, the rest of the servants have followed suit, it seems. This poor girl has got no allies in this house, does she?
Madam! Madam, what's the matter? Madam, you're bleeding. Oh, you don't need to pick that up. That's not your job, madam.
It's all right, Moriya. There's not much to pick up.
It is not at all right. And the rest of you, why are you just standing there? Your boss's wife is on her hands and knees and you're not even lifting a finger to help her?
Okay, I stand corrected. One ally. They seem to be on a first-name basis at the very least. This chapter mixes things up a bit, adding a small mystery element to the plot. The previous two chapters both kind of began their tales at the beginning, but this one kind of just drops us into the middle of a situation that's already in full swing and tries to make us catch our breath about it. Moriya bosses the other maids around a little bit. Apparently she can get away with this because Jacopo likes her. Then she gets the white-haired girl back to her room.
I too found myself somewhat relieved that Moriya was there for her. Being a servant of this house, I was also one of the maids working there at that time. However, I was unable to involve myself to any great degree in her fate. This meant that there was little I could do to assist her, even in times of pain and unpleasantness.
Why not? You interfered plenty in the previous chapters. Once they're alone, Moriya relaxes and speaks much more casually, even encouraging the white-haired girl to do the same.
This is normal for me. If I attempted to talk like you, I would freeze up out of nervousness.
It's also interesting that in the various chapters, while she's always a bit demure, the white-haired girl's personality changes a bit. These definitely seem more like reincarnations of the same person than they do the same person, if that makes any sense. In the first chapter, she was a very melancholic and nearly scheming individual. In the second, she was incredibly wise and calming, and in this one, she's nervous and soft-spoken. The white-haired girl thanks Moriya for her assistance.
You betcha. They don't call me the Virgin Mary for nothing. I practically bleed compassion.
They banter for a while, and at one point Moriya even asks to lick her fingers? Okay, weirdo. Regardless, the white-haired girl definitely needs someone a little silly in her life, and Moriya seems to be doing her best to act the part. Eventually, the conversation turns to Jacopo, and Moriya lays into him a bit for being a jackass. Despite how he treated her, however, the white-haired girl does her best to defend him. Still, she seems a little sad and confused by his treatment of her. Moriya mentions carefully that it's not impossible for a woman to file for divorce these days.
He's just very busy right now. There was a time when he was kind.
She asked Moriya to sit down and stay a while, and now let's hear just how the fuck we got here. The white-haired girl in this period comes from old money back in Europe. Okay, I say old money, but it's more like no money. All her family has left is their big estate. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost for them, Jacopo's parents sent them an offer for marriage. It works out pretty well. The white-haired girl's family gets Jacopo's money, and Jacopo gets a classy wife at the title.
I first met Jacopo here, in this country. We didn't even know what the other looked like until our wedding day.
She was very nervous about this, but once she finally saw his face, she was immediately a bit smitten. He might be a gross capitalist pig, but even I can admit he's a fucking smoke show. He, it seems, was also shaking and nervous, and this was the time period in which he was nice to her. Right after their wedding, they were given a week-long honeymoon period. They can't go very far because of the white-haired girl's albinism, but he offers, a bit rudely, but he offers, to take her wherever she wants to go. So she asks if he'll show her around town.
On a rare bit of time off, you ask me to show you around town? Is that really the most exciting idea you have?
I'm sorry. If, there is somewhere you would like to go, I am fine with that.
As if I could drag someone who just professed to being sickly all over the country. My God. I've lost all interest in a trip. Hello? What are you doing? Go get ready. Now.
So I guess they are going into town after all. Listen, these Italian guys really like to speak their minds, and it definitely takes some getting used to. Trust me, I had to learn the hard way. Jacopo continues to be a bit rude as they take a carriage into town, but his actions are beginning to come across as more awkward and unused to this kind of interaction than malicious. He just doesn't really seem to know how to talk to her. As they drive, the white-haired girl comments on the increasing discrepancy in the world's wealth dispersion, which, oh honey, it's only going to get worse. But eventually they stop in front of a store of some kind and Jacopo leads her in. It seems this is a photography shop, and apparently the shopkeeper knows him personally. Except it seems they're not getting their photo taken here. Instead, Jacopo asks the shopkeep to go get something he ordered.
You take a seat. I'm gonna show you something much more exciting than sitting still and waiting in front of a camera lens.
There's a mirror in front of her, and when Jacopo returns, he's carrying a strange device in his hands. He explains to her the concept of animation and how the human eye can trick itself into seeing something moving. So he spins the weird device in his hands, which looks a bit like a top, and tells her to look inside.
They're dancing. A man and a woman are dancing, and they seem so close, going around and around without ever letting go of each other's hands. This is incredible.
He tries to explain it again to her, but she's a bit sheltered and doesn't really want to listen to him. But she's happy with the present, so I guess all's well that ends well. Apparently, the toy is called a phenakistoscope, but the white-haired girl can't quite pronounce it, so she dubs it a phenakis wheel. Though the device is simply a toy, and a rather old design for one at that, Jacopo starts to describe what might be able to be achieved if they can improve on that technology. Say, if they could do it with pictures instead of drawings. Say, if you could take so many pictures in a row that it would look like they're moving?
There's no point recording boring, everyday life, though. If you're gonna leave a record of anything behind, it should be the projects and enterprises that move nations. Say, for example, a moving record of the opening ceremony of the railroad.
He's really stuck on this whole railroad thing, isn't he? Regardless, the white-haired girl's memory almost paints Jacopo as more of a technological visionary than a filthy investor, and maybe a bit of him is. You could be both at once, especially back then, when new technologies were exciting and not just another way to serve you advertisements. Although Jacopo denies this, simply stating that he thinks there could be money in it. That's more like it. On the way out of the store, Jacopo tells her that she can keep the Phenakis wheel as a gift, and she falls in love with the damn thing.
I was filled with a warm, pleasant elation. Jacopo was not a bad man. He merely had difficulty expressing himself.
You call this a pizza? The crust is an atrocity. It's like I'm chewing on rubber. This wine is pitifully unbalanced. Far too high levels of acidity. Listen to me carefully. The house wine is the face of the restaurant.
That's his comments about the dinner they go to immediately afterwards. Personally, I think he's got no trouble expressing himself. Like the good Italian boy he is, Jacopo has a little too much to drink and his mood improves visibly. They stop by a hill to look out over the city before heading back to the mansion.
Look out at the city. A gloomy town that shuts down at night isn't suited to expansion or growth. But this city isn't like that. As they ride the rising wave of the economy, many, many more people will gather here.
The white-haired girl asks if it will really change that much, and Jacopo goes on a whole big speech about progress and money. Man really thinks about money a lot, holy shit. But we start to get an idea why he might be like that. The white-haired girl asks him if he has any sort of dream.
Don't laugh now. My intention is to make the world mine. And to do that, you need neither physical strength nor kindness, but money and influence.
She asks him why, and he confesses that he wants to change his home country. I was making jokes before, but yes, it seems like Jacopo is actually from Italy. Sorry, I should correct myself. I'll make some people really mad otherwise. Jacopo is from Sicily, specifically. So yeah, you might realize in this moment that Jacopo isn't just a businessman. Oh no, he's a mafia man too. He tries to go back on it all, saying he's just kind of drunk.
Is it all right if I provide you encouragement as you try to attain your dream? I know my presence is more likely to be a hindrance, but I would like to be there to watch as you trek forward.
I suppose. Do as you wish.
Okay, this is all making a little more sense. Not why he's currently being abhorrent to her, but why she believes there might be more to him than that. Why she's currently staying. And there definitely is something a little weird here. Though in her memories he's still rude, Jacopo definitely has a heart under there. He's almost kind of a tsundere. A bit. But from what we've seen of him in the present, he's no longer like that. Something has clearly changed, but we have no idea what at the moment. When we cut back to the present, it seems that Moriya has just finished telling a scary ghost story to Jacopo. So he is still just awkward. At least around Moriya. It seems they know each other very well, acting more like friends than master and servant.
Oh yeah, I was talking to the madam, and she was telling me about how you used to be quite the gentleman. Were you perhaps actually in love back then? Just like when you were younger, you still...
Do not speak of that. The past is not worth remembering. It is unnecessary.
His sudden sharpness causes Moriya to dip, but on her way out, Jacopo tells her that he has not forgotten those days. Whatever the hell that means. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl seems to have revived the old rose garden, though she can only really tend to them late at night.
Well, hello there. Out for a midnight stroll, are you? There is a chilling, captivating beauty to the sight of your snow-white form standing there in the moonlit garden.
The white-haired girl seems a little unnerved by the maid, as she maybe should be. The maid abruptly changes the subject, asking if she intends to give the white rose in her hand to someone. Of course, that someone is Jacopo.
Speaking of white roses, the rose he meant to give you was the same shade of white. But when you touched it, it turned a deep shade of red. There was but a single white rose in the garden, so he was unable to give it to you as he had wished. In its place, he had a decorative rose fashioned for you.
The white-haired girl is very confused. The maid goes on to talk about how eventually that rose accessory ended up in the hands of Yukimasa, who did give it to her, but it seems the white-haired girl doesn't remember this either.
Now that I think about it, it makes sense you would not remember. Though you are still you are different than before. Tell me, is your name again?
Again?
Did you know that your current name is pronounced the same as the name of the person you are waiting for?
The white-haired girl insists she has no idea what the maid is talking about, but the maid seems convinced that someday she will remember. Jacopo comes across the white rose that his wife left for him shortly thereafter, but his reaction is a bit odd.
A flower? What does she think she's doing? Is she trying to aggravate me? That garden. That damn rose garden is the whole problem. It has no place in this house.
About a week later, Moriya comes bursting into the white-haired girl's room with some horrible news. Jacopo has elected to demolish the rose garden. Instead, he's going to build a miniature railroad in its place. Absolutely abhorrent.
You know how much this garden meant to me, don't you? Did it honestly have no place here? Flowers have a calming effect on people. They give you peace. They are not, by any means, worthless.
But he just misconstrues what she's saying and seems to think she's telling him to calm down. Moriya tries to lay into him a bit as well, but he essentially tells them both to fuck off, and his miniature railroad goes in just as he ordered. The maid comments to us that this is a damn shame.
Besides, I was rather fond of the rose garden myself. The roses seemed to evoke a sense of nostalgia in me. I felt as though, somewhere far beyond the edge of my memories, I had seen another garden of roses.
Later that evening, the white-haired girl sits in her room, staring at the Fennicus wheel. Just then, she gets a knock on the door, and of course, it's Moriya.
I got the feeling you were a little down in the dumps. So I'm not here because I need to be. I just kinda ended up here, I guess. Sorry, I'm not making any sense. I can be a bit of a busybody, you know? Never been able to fix that.
I cannot count how many times your bright smile and cheerful energy have shone a light on me when things were dark. If I didn't have you, I would have given up already.
Once again, Moriya mildly encourages her to get a divorce, but once again, the white-haired girl insists on waiting for Jacopo to come back around. In order to get her spirits back up, Moriya suggests something fun. A dance! At this time of night?
Yep, and since it's so late, no loud music. All you get is a little whistling, courtesy of me.
Jacopo's gone for the evening, so they'll use the Great Hall. The white-haired girl says she's not much of a dancer, but Moriya insists. She even gives her a little perfume to put on. They sneak down the halls, giggling like schoolgirls, until they arrive at their destination. Since the white-haired girl is so hestant, Moriya shows her how they do it back in her country, and before long the two are laughing and dancing together, and eventually the white-haired girl even begins to enjoy herself.
See? What'd I tell ya? Fun, huh?
Yes, I am quite surprised. Both that I can dance and that I enjoy it so much.
Quickly, however, she runs out of breath and they both realize how late it is. They are just about to make their way out of the hall and back to their rooms when the door swings open. Of course, it's Jacopo. And he looks pissed. The white-haired girl lamely states she didn't think he'd be back until tomorrow.
And how would you know that? No, forget that. Does my staying the night elsewhere have any effect on you? You were just waiting for this opportunity, weren't you?
He then comments on her perfume and how out of breath she is. He seems to be under the assumption that she was about to go somewhere. So, you might potentially be figuring out what is happening here, specifically by the things Jacopo is commenting on. I'm pretty sure he thinks she's having an affair. That would explain why he wanted to keep her away from his male companions at the start of the door, and also why he's so flustered about her wearing perfume now. But she's obviously not doing any of that, so the question becomes, why does he assume this about her? He seems a little awkward and unsure of himself in a romantic capacity, but would he really be that paranoid? That very well could be the answer. The problem is, since he's so bad at communicating, the white-haired girl has no idea that this thought is what's upsetting him. If he simply talked to her about it, the problem would be resolved immediately. But he won't do that, because he's Jacopo. It's entirely in character for him to act the way he is. Normally, I hate misunderstanding plots because, again, 99% of the time they could be resolved by a simple conversation, but this one is so cleverly set up that I believe its veracity entirely. Moriya once again tries to defend the white-haired girl, but Jacopo gets really mad. Inconsolably mad.
Listen up and listen good. You just try stepping out of line again. You just try disgracing me again. You will not get away with it!
See, this all makes a bit more sense when you've figured out Jacopo's motive, which the story vaguely hints at this point. However, he's still way out of fucking line here, so he's still a dickhole. Of course, the white-haired girl is shocked by his words because she's done absolutely nothing wrong. The two women leave his presence and Moriya tries to console her, apologizing for the whole catastrophe. She then says that she'll talk to Jacopo and get to the bottom of this.
I'll cool him down, promise. And you never know. Maybe he'll be open to listening.
Oh, thank God, Moriya, you really are our Virgin Mary. If there's one person to listen to, it's you. And maybe you can get out of him just why he seems to think she's having an affair, when clearly she's head over heels for him. The next morning sees Jacopo clearly agitated as all hell, practicing pool. This is not a good time to interrupt him, but someone does anyway. We don't know who he is, but his name is apparently Tommaso, and Jacopo seems to know him. This is where the mafia hypothesis is confirmed. Tommaso is a member of Jacopo's crime family, or Cosca as they'll call it for the rest of this chapter. The family is called the Bearzattis, and it seems like Jacopo is next in line to lead them. So basically he's here to butter Jacopo up and ask for money. And Jacopo knows it. He is suitably irritated at this man. Jacopo acquiesces, but says that he'll be reporting Tommaso's gambling debt to the family. On his way out, Tommaso claims he has something else to talk about. He says that the white-haired girl came to him for advice about Jacopo, since he's been a little rough with her. Tommaso tells him to lay off a bit and gives him some perfume to give to her. He leaves, but this seems only to infuriate Jacopo more.
Asking him for advice? Fashionable perfume? Her smile?
He seems to be putting some pieces together that don't go that way. Oh no, no, no. He immediately makes his way to her room and yells at her for going to Tommaso for advice.
You told him I'm rough with you? You cried on his shoulder because I'm not nice enough?
Wait! Jacopo, you're mistaken. Let me...
Silence! Not a word! Not a single godforsaken word! The only thing that comes out of your mouth is excuses, lies, and fabrication. You put on this sweet, innocent little girl act, but what's really going through your head? Maybe I should just rip that mask off your face.
Holy shit, dude. He grabs her, accuses her of seeing Tommaso and maybe others. He tells her that she must look down on him because he's a commoner, despite the wonderful life of luxury he's given her.
What more could you possibly want? Why do you insist on being unfaithful?
No, I did not. I had no such inclination.
Enough! Not another word from you! I have no interest in your excuses.
So yeah, you know how I said a simple conversation would sort this out? Well, this was it, and it's not going well. Jacopo forbids her from leaving her room at all, or even speaking to the servants. But come on, Jacopo, you can go bigger than that. Oh, and he does. He says he's going to make her a little room out in the garden and stick her in there.
If you leave that room without my permission, this time, I'll kill you.
Why? Why will you not listen to me?
Jacopo, the master of the house, likely loved the white-haired girl. That is what I saw in their exchange. I never knew that love could be such a painful thing. How did his love end up so twisted? What did he expect to happen by confining and abusing the woman he loved?
Okay, so Jacopo's officially gone too far now. He is out of the realm of understanding and all the way into being a terrible, awful villain. Sure, he has his reasons, even understandable ones, but his temper is out of control. He's gone straight from being mean to being downright horribly abusive. So that sucks, because he does indeed have a little shack constructed and sticks it right in the middle of the yard, a white-haired girl trapped inside. And she stays there for a very long time. The white-haired girl's life becomes entirely solitary, save for the times her meals are brought to her. Luckily, Moriya volunteers to be in charge of her, so that's the one saving grace we've got. She tries her best to keep the white-haired girl's spirits up, but even she admits that there's no way she can succeed. She apologizes for being useless, and she's just a simple maid.
It's okay. I am used to being imprisoned.
Wait, she is? Moriya calls her out on this, but the white-haired girl seems a bit confused. She has no memories of being imprisoned, yet she seems to recall the sensation. Moriya just insists she's exhausted, which is probably true. But one day, the white-haired girl has a request for Moriya. She says that she'd like to write a letter. Meanwhile, Jacopo is currently holding a pity party. Attendees 1.
Why? How did this happen? Why would she betray me? I didn't want to get violent with her, yet when I heard what she had to say, I couldn't restrain myself. I guess what it comes down to is that no matter how you dress it up, I'm still a Bearzatti.
He also recalls the memory of the Fennecis wheel fondly, it seems, and really thought that they had made a connection. So, again, what led him down this incredibly wrong train, of thought?
Jacopo, it's me, Moriya. Is it alright if I come in?
Moriya tries to tell him off a bit about how he's been treating the white-haired girl, but she seems a little cowed about it. Yeah, no wonder, holy shit. She also claims she's concerned about Jacopo as well. Again, they seem to know each other, if you'll recall. And now we're going to find out how. It seems they grew up together in the same small town in Sicily. Seems like neither of their family lives were super great, so they ended up running off to this little abandoned house at the top of the hill to play. They even fed a stray dog up there named Nero. At the time, Maria's family, the Campanellas, controlled the area, not Jacopo's family. But for some reason, when she was 12, Moriya had to leave. Before she goes, Jacopo promises her that whatever happens between their two families, whom it seems like are feuding, he will always make a place for her. And it seems like he sort of kept it in a way. Before she goes, he gives her one last present, a cartridge from an old Colt Navy that his dad has hanging up at his house. She is supposed to return it to the gun when she comes back, and the two of them promise that their friendship will last forever. Back in the present, Moriya promises Jacopo that she's still always his ally, since it seems that in this entire mansion he only has her to rely on.
Hey, now's probably not the best time to bring this up, but I have a letter written by the madam here.
Jacopo reads the letter, which inevitably contains expressions of affection from the white-haired girl, but his reaction is unexpected.
Who is this letter for? It's as if... But that can't...
Take a deep breath, Jacopo, and listen to me. The madam is having an affair.
What?
I haven't changed a bit. If you seriously believe that, then I've got news for you, pal. Anyone who acts exactly like they did in the past is doing just that. Acting.
This chapter mixes things up in the fact that it reveals its twist a little more than halfway through the plot. Yeah, so, Moriya. We were wondering how Jacopo had even gotten the idea that the white-haired girl was cheating on him, and now we know. Moriya has been planting this idea in his head since the beginning. Of all the twists so far, this one is the least fucked up, at least on the surface. In fact, this chapter in general is the least fucked up on paper. However, its execution is so very real that in my opinion it blows the other two out of the water in terms of sheer psychic damage it inflicts on the viewer. Let's take a look at how it accomplishes this.
Our friendship will never change? Ha! What a fucking joke! You picked the wrong girl to put your trust in. Well, that just makes things easier for me. But my god, it's suffocating playing the good girl.
We continue with the previous scene, except now we see everything for how it is. Jacopo is absolutely peeved and wants to go confront her right now, but Moriya tells him to cool his jets. She says that anything she says to him will probably just be lies, and reminds him that she is the daughter of a noble. If he does anything permanent to her, there will be consequences. Moriya tells him to trust her, that she'll make sure everything works out.
Thank you, Moriya. Please, let her know that even if she is seeing other men, that I still love her.
You love her? That's a riot. You're too busy chasing your stacks of paper. You don't have what it takes to truly love a woman.
Ow. Fucking harsh. She also hangs a little lampshade on this whole plot by commenting herself that this whole fucking thing can be resolved by a simple conversation, which some people hate lampshades, but I actually think it makes plots more understandable and believable if a character themselves realizes how stupid a plotline is. Like, shit, this really does happen in real life all the time, and if it did, we would probably also make a dumb comment like that. Of course, in this case, Jacopo's too bullheaded to accept any other possibility, and the white-haired girl's too timid to speak up, so this whole thing makes total sense. It's just good to hear a bit from the voice of the author that this was absolutely the intention of this plot, to make you realize just how stupid and preventable it all is. And that is why reading this chapter is suffering. Moriya goes back to the white-haired girl and just straight up lies, telling her that Jacopo claimed he was too busy with work to read her letter. Now that she's got them isolated from each other, she can toy with them so much easier now. Still, the white-haired girl has faith that she'll get through to him, and insists on writing another letter.
You really ought to learn not to be so trusting, madam. Take a real close look, and you'll see exactly who it was that ground your happy little life into dust. You're just ignorant little puppets dancing to my tune. From the first shot to the last, blind to whose finger is sitting on the trigger.
The following is essentially the entirety of the plot thus far from Moriya's perspective, with gloating commentary in the middle. Of course, she is the one that originally put the idea of the affair in Jacopo's head, telling him that she saw the white-haired girl meeting with a man in their rose garden. The lies then become grander. She claims that she might be having affairs with multiple men.
They could just talk it over with one another, but they won't. And they're in deeper and deeper shit for it. And the timing that night, my god, it was perfect.
Of course, she's referring to the night she took the white-haired girl dancing. It was Moriya who told Jacopo that she got the madam to slip and tell her that she might be going somewhere tonight. She's the reason Jacopo came home early and caught them in the Great Hall, and also the reason he assumed she was going to meet someone.
She doesn't even suspect me in the slightest. And I was able to put that perfume to great use. That money-sucking Lise Tommaso showed up at the perfect time, too.
We see her corner Tommaso before he went to talk to Jacopo. They already know each other, obviously, and it was Moriya who told him to tell Jacopo that the white-haired girl talked to him, and she is the one who gave him the perfume to give to Jacopo.
Their relationship's in complete shambles, and Jacopo still insists he fucking loves her. And the madam says she still believes in him.
This absolute fucking minx. She's been behind pretty much everything all along. All of the misunderstandings and the problems, it's all been her fault. There's been someone behind the scenes directing the pain the characters are feeling. It's almost a little meta. Oh, my friends, there are going to be so many layers of this, you don't even know.
Master, are you shocked? Or do you instead lament this development?
Of course, revealing this twist halfway through really twists the knife in your gut, doesn't it? We still have a long way to go, knowing exactly what the problem is but not having any way to direct it. It almost feels a bit malicious on the part of the narrative, doesn't it? Like it's rendering us helpless watching the tragedy spiral out of control. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl writes letter after letter to Jacopo. She really has nothing better to do after all.
My beloved, I am sure your hands are quite full right now, but that is fine. It does not change my love for you. I still treasure the gift you gave to me, for it is the one and only present I have received from you.
Of course, Moriya has been altering the letters so they don't look like they're addressed to Jacopo, so he has no idea that she's been writing all of these letters for him.
I still treasure the gift you gave to me? God's sake, you have to be fucking kidding!
And he has obsessively read every single one, thinking they're addressed to someone else entirely. This goes on for a very long time. The white-haired girl writes letters. Jacopo reads them thinking they're for someone else. He feels more and more pathetic and miserable, which leads him to put off talking to her in person, and the cycle of misery continues, all while Moriya is directing the actions from behind the scenes. It's also thoroughly miserable for us to watch. There's only one thing that I think is keeping us going at this point, and it's to get one final answer. Why is Moriya doing this?
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
We'll get there. Eventually. There's a lot of pain to get through first, though. Of course, there's another factor in all this. The Koska. If word got out that his wife is having affairs with multiple men, Jacopo would look weak. His father nailed that into his head before the wedding, while also claiming that Jacopo can see whoever he likes. Lame as hell, but that's how the House of Cards is built, I suppose. One day, while wallowing in misery as usual, Jacopo has to go do an inspection of some kind, but it doesn't go as planned. His usual coachman has been replaced, and this one wants him dead. It's only a knife. Jacopo lives, and a maid finds him in time. But still, even if he's telling himself to keep his shit together, he still can't help blacking out.
I know very well what kind of man you are. You wouldn't hesitate to lead a blind man off a cliff if it furthered your own goals. You stand upon a mountain of corpses. For a man like you, love comes as naturally as flying. Guess what? You don't have any emotions, and you never have. You've always been this way.
Jacopo recalls his childhood, how his family was not in charge back then, how he was constantly bullied, and how that put a fire under his ass to prove himself.
I had to make them acknowledge that I had value as a man. Who actually wants to go through life being laughed at? I had to make them recognize that what I did had value, and I needed neither love nor compassion to do it.
He admits that at first he only married the white-haired girl to use her, but the instant he saw her under that veil, he was smitten.
I truly did want to ensure she always had a smile on her face.
Well, you know what they say about roads and paving them with good intentions. I think this is a wonderful opportunity while he's recovering from being stabbed to talk about Jacopo. You know, give the man a minute. Jacopo is a really complicated character, especially when compared to the previous two main characters. In the first chapter, Mell made some mistakes, but there's a tendency there to not villainize him for his actions. Sure, he's a bit of a selfish prick, but for the most part, he's well-meaning and doesn't mean to harm those around him. On the other hand, Yukimasa in the second chapter is a pretty straightforward villain, if a somewhat sympathetic one. We were never meant to forgive Yukimasa for his transgressions, simply to understand why he did the things he did. Jacopo sits firmly on a tightrope somewhere in the middle. Throughout the game, the maid has been delicately pushing you into making moral calls about the other characters by asking you your thoughts, and this is where the deviousness of that philosophy comes into play. How is one supposed to feel about Jacopo? On the one hand, his temper is horrible. He's done some awful things to his wife, and he's locked her up in a goddamn garden shed. That's pretty terrible. On the other, he's been manipulated into doing it by someone who knows exactly how to push his buttons. He does truly love the white-haired girl and never wanted things to go the way they have. He has a temper for sure, but his biggest flaw is that he's actually incredibly easy to manipulate. It's weird. The things he's done are terrible, but there's so many circumstances and malicious around the things he's done that can you really say they were his fault? I think it kind of depends on who you are as a person. I like to mostly settle on, he's just complicated, but there are definitely some out there who would render a moral judgment faster than I. I think the intention of this choice, however, is to really make you have to carefully consider all of the circumstances of the situation, which is why I broke it down so thoroughly. In real life, we are so insistent on making snap judgments about people these days that it's stories like this that are really important, because it's only in stories that we get to objectively see everyone's perspectives, and not just our own. I think we don't always consider things like that enough in real life. Oh, but he's waking up now, so that's enough waxing poetic for me. He's still not doing good, but it seems like he's being offered some comfort. Moriya has opened the door for the white-haired girl, and now she's sitting by his side.
I've done some regrettable things to you. Please forgive me. To tell you the truth, from the moment I first saw you, I felt like you were what I'd been searching for my whole life.
You should get some sleep.
Could you keep holding my hand until I fall asleep? Thank you.
You appear to be quite delirious, Master. Those are things you should be telling your wife, not me.
Of course, once Jacopo recovers a little more, he realizes that it all must have been a dream. But he doesn't have very long to mope about it, because here comes the Scarlet Woman with another letter from the white-haired girl. And even after this wound, this whole charade continues for several more months. Which is bad news for the white-haired girl, as even though she is physically well, being almost entirely isolated for months at a time is not good for her, especially when her only source of communication is actively fucking with her.
Do you have any idea what he says about you, madam? Jacopo doesn't trust you in the slightest. He goes around calling you a witch. A man-eating devil woman.
He says I am a witch?
But still, she keeps writing, even as her health begins to fail her. And still, Moriya alters the letters. It is so painful to watch her go back and forth between these two. Moriya suggests to the white-haired girl that she divorce him, but no, she still loves him and wants to keep trying. Moriya suggests to Jacopo that he should just kill her, but no, he still loves her and keeps hoping she'll turn around and love him back.
The look of utter elation on her face as she looked through the phenakistoscope. Those captivating eyes beneath the veil at our wedding. I will never, for as long as I live, forget those sights.
But Jacopo knows that something has to change. He has to try to talk to her. And so Moriya suggests there might be a day when there's something to talk about, something to break the ice. The day that Jacopo's baby, the Transcontinental Railroad, finally opens. The white-haired girl's condition makes it impossible for her to travel, but with this new railroad, she actually could travel, and in comfort on top of that. Meanwhile, Moriya's losing her shit at all of this.
Oh my god, Moriya, you're terrible. And these people call me the Holy Mother. I bet the real Mary's rolling in her fucking grave.
However, she is a little worried now, because if Jacopo does get his shit together and just talks to her, the jig might be up. It seems, though, that Moriya might be just as tired as they are at this point. But before this whole thing gets resolved, there's one more little scene we have to cover. One day, Moriya gets told that she's been called upon to clean the cellar. Yup, the same infamous one from the last chapter. She thinks she hears a noise far back in, and when she goes to investigate, she finds something odd. Some sort of message carved into the floor of the cellar in what looks like Latin. Since Italian is kind of a newer version of that language, kinda, don't kill me, that's how the story justifies it, Moriya is able to make it out. Our lives shall be forfeit to the witch's curse. Nevertheless, we must lay bare those with sin upon their souls for the redemption of those who are pure. Should ye not mean to dispel your curse, we implore of you, O witch, to mark it with only their bloodlines. The blood of the sinners flows through those who dwelt within this house. Which is weird. Moriya also notices something odd. The handwriting almost resembles her own. And then she finds something else. A painting in a box. The white-haired girl later sees that the door to her room is open, and waiting for her on the other side is that same painting.
Is that me? Why, but my face, it's been cut. Why would someone have this painted just to do this?
You're like a witch, my dear, like a demon. Your very presence brings misfortune upon others. You're cursed.
I am not. Was it you, Jacopo? Did you have this painted so you could destroy it? Do you really despise me to that extent? All I am doing is waiting for you.
She recalls all of the terrible things he said and done to her, and this is kind of the last straw. And so the white-haired girl finally sets a deadline. The day the railroad opens, if he doesn't come to talk to her by then, she will finally leave. The night before the ceremony, Jacopo finally visits the shack. He stands outside and asks to be let in.
I won't hurt you. I will not raise my hand against you again. I swear to you, I will do you no harm. I just wish to speak.
As a show of good faith, he will not enter unless she gives him a response. But she remains silent. He tells her his feelings about the day in the photography shop. How, more than anything, he wanted to give her something unique that no one else had ever done before, and he hopes that the moment was as real for her as it was for him. He tells her how he set up a telegraph in the mansion to be able to hear the opening ceremony of the railroad tomorrow so that she can experience it in the comfort of her own home, and that he'd like her to be there.
I want to celebrate this with you. I have made arrangements to make that possible for you, because I wish to have you there with me. Would you be willing, tomorrow, to celebrate the completion of the Pacific Railroad with me? Would you be there at my side?
But still, she says nothing. He begs, pleads with her to give him one word, promising to even set her free if she rejects him. But then he realizes something. The door is open. Inside, the room is empty. The white-haired girl is gone. The only thing that remains is the phenakistoscope, the one she kept this entire time.
Why? But you were with other men. Why would you keep something I gave you? It's so worn. Why?
There is one more thing in the room. A letter. Her final letter that she left for him.
My beloved Jacopo, did the fruits of your dream turn out to be as you had hoped? I am sure it was wonderful and impressively fast. I wish I could have been there to see it. Am I being presumptuous? I'm sorry. I thought I would keep waiting for you forever. But I do have one request. Please do not forget about all the letters I wrote. Think back on them from time to time. Do not burn them all, for they contain my thoughts, my feelings, my words, a record of my love for you.
The letter continues a bit further, and continues to break down. The white-haired girl speaks of a voice telling her that she is a witch. She thinks it might be his. She tells him that she loves him, and that she's leaving the Fennecis wheel behind, though it was her dearest treasure. But wait, the railroad ceremony isn't until tomorrow. Unfortunately, the date for it was changed from the 8th, when the white-haired girl wrote this note, to the 10th, which is tomorrow. Jacopo made sure that someone informed her of this, and that someone was Moriya. And suddenly, all of the pieces fall into place. Jacopo realizes exactly what's been happening this entire time. He storms out of the shack to find Moriya. He searches the entire house for her, until finally, he sees a light on in his own chambers.
I've been waiting, Jacopo.
She belittles him, tells him this room is too good for him, especially when she's made to stay in that barren little bedroom of hers.
Clear the air with your little lady yet? I love that look on your face. I'm guessing you didn't make things better then.
You know, good and well, that she's not even here anymore.
Well, yeah, but I still want to hear you say it, you know? I want to hear from your own mouth that you couldn't keep a leash on your woman, so you locked her up, drove her mad, broke her down, and then she ran away from you. Climb back on your high horse and start shouting like you always do.
Of course, finally, it's time for the million-dollar question. Why did Moriya do this?
Because I fucking despise you.
Yeah, so as it turns out, she has hated him since they reunited. And I mean, at the end of the day, it makes sense. The reason that Moriya had to go away when they were kids, it has been implied, is that Jacopo's family kicked hers out. And now here she is, having lost everything, now being a maid to the very man who took everything from her. Because yes, as it turns out, Jacopo's father did murder Moriya's dad and grandfather.
They say it was a carriage accident, but the ground was all torn to hell where it happened. You want to tell me what kind of carriage accident causes it to explode? Feels pretty good, don't it? Slaughtering my family, leaving us to wallow in the mud, while you live here like a fucking king!
She laments that if she'd been born a man, she could have been the next boss of her family. And okay, can I just say, I'm so glad her motivation wasn't romantic jealousy. In fact, as she states to Jacopo, she actually really likes the white-haired girl, but also she was incredibly easy to manipulate. And that's the extent of her hate. That's everything.
All that's left is for me to kill you. It's time I finally return this to you, Jacopo. That cartridge you gave me, packed with your disgusting sentimentality.
She fires and hits Jacopo, but he's not dead yet.
Even if you had been a man, you wouldn't have been a suitable Capofamiglia. You should have aimed between my eyes, Moriya!
He takes out his own gun and does just that.
Would anyone ever believe me if I said this wasn't how I wanted things to turn out?
We recall some more of Jacopo and Moriya's past, how close they were, and how she, as a slightly older sister figure, always comforted him in times of fear or stress. However, on the other side, we have his father, who claims that the Campanellas are too conservative, and how Sicily will fall further and further behind with them in charge. Jacopo was sent to the New World specifically to establish the Cosca there.
Money, power, respect. I thought that if I could obtain all that, I would be able to give you your freedom. And her as well. I wanted to give you both comfortable lives. But none of that got through to either of you.
A maid stumbles upon him and calls for a doctor, and Jacopo laments that money and power is now all he has left.
This is what you wanted, though, is it not? Will you eventually find solace in your riches? The way I see it, money and power can be your ally, but they can become your enemy in the blink of an eye. If you do not put them into words, your feelings will never make it through to anyone. For unlike money, humans are not measurable by their appearance.
Jacopo's greatest sin is shutting himself off from humanity, to the point that he no longer knew how to truly communicate at all. The railroad is completed as scheduled. Immediately afterwards, Jacopo holds a funeral for Moriya, then commences a search for the white-haired girl.
However, he was never able to locate her, and he spent the remainder of his life alone. He waited, and he waited, and he waited for the white-haired girl to return. The years crawled by, and with no family or loved ones at his side to care for him in old age, he died alone.
And with that, the third door swings shut, and we are once more returned to the dark, grim mansion. So, yeah, just like the last two, that one kind of sucked, huh? I tried my best to talk about the chapter as we went through it, but there's a couple more things I want to wrap up first. Honestly, the third chapter may be my favorite out of these three, for one simple reason. It tells a much more subtle story, which in turn fits the ages of its characters. The first chapter was about teenage puppy love and featured a type of horror that would appeal to young adults, something suitably twisted but very comically ironic and fate-driven. The second chapter seems to be about the first true adult love and features very dark, realistic horror. Well, at least until Yukimasa starts screaming about how beastly he is. The third chapter features a very adult married couple, and its horror is a lot more subtle. It's really about the fear you feel as an audience member, having much more information about the scenario than nearly any of the characters, but not able to do anything to stop it. Each chapter teaches us something valuable about this narrative, and how we should approach it going forward. As I mentioned before, the first chapter teaches you that the story will fuck with you, the second chapter teaches you that the story will lie to you, and this last chapter, well, the third chapter teaches you that this story hates you. You are almost just as much a prisoner to it as any of its characters. I've never really read a story before that has so much malice for the one reading it, or even tries to make the reader as active of a participant as the story does. This is one of the main things that visual novels excel at, of course, making you as the reader feel much more like a part of the story than a normal novel, by use of sounds and visuals, of course, but also by the way of the fact that you have to be the one to click the lines forward to continue the story, and sometimes you are the one who has to make the choices that impact where it goes. But Fata Morgana also utilizes more traditional story techniques in combination with all of these things to almost create a back and forth with the player. It sets up scenarios and challenges the player to care. And as soon as they do, because this story is really good at making you care, it makes horrible things happen to those you now care about and laughs at you. And if you think that we've reached the depths of the hatred behind the house in Fata Morgana, you are sadly mistaken. It's only going to get more painful from here. After all, we haven't even met any of our main players yet. I look forward to wandering these halls with you again soon, Master. But please, before we go, make sure you get some sleep tonight. Special thanks to my Priests of the Hog and my Elder Hog Prophets, 89 Slam 89, Adra, Chronoton, Death Kitty, Eshok 7, Jonathan Hummel, Madam Mr. Sir, Magil of the Shadows, and Ventus Agri. Thanks so much, guys.